What's up, Sifters? GameFace 42 in the house. We are here. It's Wednesday evening here on the West Coast. God knows what time of day it is, wherever you guys are watching. Slow week for games, kinda, as far as games are concerned. Some big stories, though.
Big stories, no big releases.
Yeah, so we don't have any huge games to really go in depth about this week, but we have a bunch of really fun topics to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about before we get into the Big Six, a game that has been one of my sort of personal favorites, or at least a game I've been really excited over for the last year plus, actually, at this point. Rime was a PlayStation 4 exclusive, was supposed to be published by Sony. This week, it's announced that Sony has relinquished the rights to the game and given it back to the developers. Turns out that footage that we're seeing right now was all fake. This was all pre-rendered CG target footage. It was never a real game.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate, and I'm really disappointed. This is one of those games that really caught my eye at E3 last year. We've talked about it several times on the show. How
it doesn't look like there's any reason it would need to be CG.
Oh, I know. Well, I mean, look, they're going to create a target, right?
Right.
They're not going to create CG that makes it look unrealistic. But yeah, apparently this was never a real game when they made this footage, and the project has run into hard times, and who knows, Matt, if this game's ever going to come out. I guess one positive that came out of all of this is if it does come out, it will be likely available for multiple platforms and not just the PlayStation 4, which is good news for most folks who may not have a PlayStation 4 and would like to play it, although at this point, do people want to play it?
I still want to play. I mean, it speaks to the Team Eco fan in me. And
Yeah.
it's not like we get Eco games every 5 minutes or anything.
Well, it speaks to the Zelda fan in me, to be honest. It just looks like it was going to be like PlayStation's take on Zelda, to be honest. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if I would count on this thing coming in the next couple years. I mean, it looks like a really ambitious game to begin with, so...
Well, if Shenmue 3 can happen, anything can happen.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. Of course, that could also mean that we won't see this game for another 15 years.
True.
But
True.
So yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about off the top of the show. A little disappointed in that. Another thing we want to talk about is the GT crew, the former GT crew, finally announced what it is going to do. It is working on a brand new project called Easy Allies. Not 100% certain exactly what it is, to be honest.
Well, it's like a weekly stream, I think it's starting out as.
It's
getting 8 of the guys together.
Yeah, I mean, I had lunch with Brandon, and just so you guys know, I did mention this in the comments on Sifted for this video, but I did try to get Brandon to come over and work with us. In fact, I tried really, really hard to get Brandon to come over and work with us. He was intent, from the first time I met with him, to do what you're seeing right now, Easy Allies. I was hoping I could maybe change his mind, but I was unable to. So he is plowing forward with all the guys that he was working with at the end of GT. And I guess the best thing I can tell is that they're going to do lots of streaming and a podcast. And I guess they've hit goals to do a bunch of other stuff. But looking at the...
Yeah, depending on how much they get per month. And they're up to about $30,000 a month in pledges right now. And subscribers. I don't know what you call the Patreon subscribers.
Pledgers,
backers, subscribers.
Funders, yeah.
They're up to about 30,000, which takes, I mean, their maximum stretch goal was like 50,000 for a new studio, which I don't think is actually in the cards anyway. But so it sounds like they're being pretty ambitious. I'm hoping that Patreon funding has kind of a tendency to drop by about 40% after about 10 months or so. So I'm hoping that
in 10 months, if they make that kind of money, then they can actually do something.
Right, but I'm just hoping that the people who pledge to subscribe to this stuff, stick with it.
Because kind of funny, their pledges or whatever you want to call it fell off pretty quick. I mean, they launched huge, like $80,000 a month or something ridiculous, and now they're down to like 20 or 30. And it's only been, how long has Kind of Funny been around now? 4 or 5 months, something like that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember when they launched, but they've lost more than half of their initial pledges, so hopefully that doesn't happen to these guys. Looking at their goals and everything, the finances. I don't know.
I know that alley.
I'm not quite sure how they work out, because if you split that money up between 7 or 8 people, it doesn't amount to much.
No. Well, they say in the pitch on the Patreon page that this is not any of their full-time job at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe one day it could be if if the funding sticks around, if more people subscribe, if they get some backing from some other sources, because if they are successful out of the gate, we'll see.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about that is if they do get jobs in the games business at a website or whatever, it's going to be really hard to convince that new job to let them kind of moonlight on the side and do something like that. So, really excited for these guys. Obviously, have a lot of love for them. Hope that they do really well. Hope it succeeds. Good to see them finally getting it up off its feet. Easy Allies, if you want to contribute, I think it's just patreon.com/Easy Allies if you want to contribute to their campaign.
I think if you just Google Easy Allies, it'll auto-complete the Patreon at this point. But,
yep. So another little bit of news we want to talk about that popped up yesterday, Red Dead Redemption. 2 people. That's some pretty awesome news. Not overall surprising, but...
No, if there was one other thing than Grand Theft Auto they were going to do, it would probably be this.
Yeah.
But
for sure, yeah.
I liked Red Dead Redemption quite a bit. I did stall out in Mexico because I thought that part was pretty boring.
Yeah. I mean, the environment in general is kind of dull.
But it's beautiful, and it really captures the spirit, and it was a lot of fun.
What I really like about Red Dead is that...
It was a bit of a cougar simulator at times.
Yeah,
but,
well, what I love about Red Dead and what I love in general about Rockstar Games is how they have this ability to kind of capture the essence of a period of time. Mm-hmm. And granted, a lot of their games, it's like the 80s or the 90s or the aughts. Yeah. But they did the same thing with the Old West.
Yeah, and also just the environment. I mean, where this takes place is, about 30 miles east of here. That's where that basically that environment begins. The scrub desert, and you go out there. I mean, this is exactly what it looks like. I mean, the light is just like the sunset near the beach in Santa Monica in GTA 5. The light is perfect. It's exactly what it looks and feels like to be there.
Yeah.
So,
they're also great at writing characters, and I feel like in Red Dead they did a great job with that as well. Because it could just be kind of one note. Everyone's
Marston was a good character.
Not even just him, but the other bit parts in the game as well. That's really endeared to a lot of the characters in the game. The ending had a pretty strong impact on me as well. They closed the game off in a memorable way. Not sure how they'll pick up the sequel, but exciting nonetheless. And just so you guys know, what happened essentially was it was another resume leak where someone who was working on the game had it in their resume. The resume went online. Sleuthers found it. It's crazy. So all the leaks now come from resumes and retailers. Except for the NX stuff.
Don't trust anyone you fire or Amazon.
Yeah, apparently. So really excited about Red Dead Redemption 2. 2K has already said it's going to have a presence at E3, which is rare to never. So, to me, there's a high probability that this will be one of the games debuted at E3.
There'll be plenty of space.
Yeah, exactly.
You could set up a whole ranch.
Because typically what 2K does at E3 is they just have an investors meeting. Yeah. And actually, some stuff has leaked out of investors meetings. I think it was either the first footage of Grand Theft Auto 4 or 5 leaked out of that investor meeting.
I think that was 5.
Was it 5?
It was either that or at least news that it was happening.
Yeah, there was actually leaked footage that came out of one of those. So even if they don't do a proper press conference or whatever, although what I'm guessing is going to happen is it will either be at the Microsoft or Sony press conference this year. That's my guess.
I would think.
So,
and I'm guessing Microsoft because they've got Red Dead Redemption on deck for the backwards compatibility on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
That was, I think that was leaked or it went up by accident. A couple people got hold of it, were able to buy it or activate it by accident.
Up, people found it.
Yeah.
It went down.
So I would guess it would be Microsoft.
Yeah.
It would help fill a couple of holes.
Well, I think Microsoft may be learning a hard lesson about, and it actually taught this lesson to everybody else about how important it is to give the illusion that a game is kind of hitching its horse to your wagon. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, with PlayStation, it was Battlefront.
Yeah.
Everyone, the way the commercials and the marketing went for that game,
you
would think that it was like a PlayStation 4 exclusive. And, Microsoft did that last generation with a bunch of franchises, most importantly Call of Duty. And so maybe this might be Microsoft's attempt to get back into that space where they associate themselves with the marketing around this game, and people start to assume, oh, and maybe they get exclusive DLC for this game, which with Rockstar, who knows what that'll even be at this point. We still have no story DLC for GTA 5.
And they say there won't be any.
Have they said that?
That's what I heard.
I don't think they have actually confirmed that yet. I think it's been like they've been weird about it, but I don't think they've actually said like definitively that they're not doing it.
I think if there was going to be some, we'd have seen it.
I'd agree with that. Like I would say the chances of it happening are probably at about 20% right now.
And it's a shame because like there was a lot more you could do in that world.
I mean that game. I can't believe they haven't put out story. The problem is they're making so much money off Grand Theft Auto Online that they're like, why would we take these guys off of this easy money to create story DLC, which may or may not hit if it doesn't get great reviews. So I would love story DLC for that game.
And I loved, I loved the heist update. It was I had a lot of fun.
Although it was like
that.
Delayed, like
forever. But like, when it finally came out, it was great.
Yeah.
But I really wish there had been like an equivalent of the Ballad of Gay Tony for GTA.
Yeah.
Where because Ballad of Gay Tony was where they really like took the safeties off everything. In that one.
They can do that with DLC though, because they don't have to count on the entire user base experiencing something.
Right. So, but like I would love something that crazy in GTA 5. Because GTA 5 was already pretty much at the level of Ballad of Gay Tony anyway. Yeah. So if you take that, you're wandering into Saints Row territory at that point. Maybe.
Yeah.
But like, I would have loved to seen them go a little unhinged on that.
Yeah.
But the mod scene kind of does that for you now on PC. So maybe that's what they kind of are counting on to keep it alive.
It could be. So regardless, no matter who markets the game, really, really excited for Red Dead.
Wherever you need me to go.
Yeah, exactly. It sure looks like in a month or two we'll finally be able to check out the game for the first time. I can't wait to see the game running on new gen hardware.
Because that game was almost a miracle.
I mean, look at what we just were looking at. That game still looks stunning after all this time. And
it never had a PC version.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. All right. Well, that's it for the intro to the show. It's time to get to the BIGSIX. So, Matt, we've talked about The Division on this show ad nauseum. We talked about it.
Played The Division ad nauseum.
That's pretty much what you have to do if you're going to play The Division. We talked about it 2 weeks ago when it came out. We talked about it a little bit last week. I'm bringing it up again. We're going for the trifecta with The Division, and it's because I have an issue with it that's really bothering me. And what's really bothering me is the always online functionality for the game. I have been burned by this. I can't tell you how many times and in multiple ways. So the first way I've been burned by it is the litany of crash bugs that are in this game. And the crazy part about the crash bugs are like they're all named something. They don't actually give you like error codes. Like they just have like they have weird names that are associated with them. And so you use those, you try to find like information online to help you search for it, but when you search for it, because the words are so common, like it's really hard to find like solutions. And in the end of the day, there really are no solutions.
No.
It's just busted.
Solution is wait for them to get it together.
Yeah. And look, sometimes it's hit or miss. Sometimes you get dropped. If you're playing by yourself and you get dropped, it really freaking sucks because you basically lose all your progress on whatever mission you were doing, and you get kicked like back to whatever the last safe house was that you were at or back to the base. If you're playing with others, it's not quite as bad, like because you do get booted, but if you're fast enough, it will actually kind of respawn you back with the people you're playing competitively with, hopefully before they've actually finished the mission. I actually had a case where we were fighting the final boss on a mission, and it crashed. I got kicked out, and by the time I came back, they had already completed the mission, and I got screwed. So let's start talking a little bit about the history of Always Online. So sort of one of the first big cases of it was SimCity. EA's world-building game that, it kind of came under fire for the whole world-building, or for the Always Online DRM at first. Everybody knew about that. But the big problem was when the game launched, because it was always online, it didn't work. And people were completely unable to play the game.
And there was the claim, EA made some claim that like they were using some kind of cloud computing that the game couldn't run offline because they were doing too much of it online to make it work. And then I think a few days later, like someone in the community cracked it so it worked offline and was fine. So everyone was like, what? And so I think there's been a lot of like dishonesty in the presentation of the Always Online DRM idea to the consumer base in the first place. So like, there's no reason to trust what anyone says about it at this point.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the precedent, right? That was the first one, and I feel like that kind of put everybody on guard going forward.
I mean, people were already on guard because of Diablo 3 doing that, even if you wanted to just play solo.
Right.
And well, that wasn't really a problem too much because, I mean, Blizzard's pros. They knew it. You couldn't get online the first night without like waiting for a while. But like after that, it was ironed out, and it wasn't really a big deal because who doesn't have a PC that's online all the time, right? But like SimCity was the one where it was like, we're just not even gonna, it was specifically supposed to be anti-piracy, but it's a classic, example of an anti-piracy technique only hurting the people who legitimately bought the game.
Yeah. And so you're right. Diablo 3 was another one of the early cases where people were kind of like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Like, how's this going to work? Yeah. Then we have the announcement of Xbox One at E3, where they're talking about how the console has to be connected all the time. You don't own your games, blah, blah, blah. There was a huge backlash over that, which made Microsoft completely reverse its course and come more in line with PlayStation, although Sony also initially
they had the same
was
system
going to have the same exact system, and only because Microsoft went first was it able to watch that debacle and see the reaction to it and suddenly adjust its press conference.
Wouldn't it be interesting to see a world in which Sony went first?
It would be, because it could have changed everything.
Yeah.
If Sony had gone first and they announced that, which they were supposed to, then it's reversed. Then Microsoft watches the reaction to Sony's announcement, and then Microsoft juggles its press conference and changes it for it, and it could just be everything could be flip-flopped over that. And it is kind of funny the way people are, like, just consumers in general, like, they'll never know that Sony also had the plan to do that as well. And the only reason it changed its mind was because it saw people freak out over Microsoft. But then,
which is a good reason to change your mind.
It is, for sure. But then people crown Sony as like this consumer-friendly company.
Consumer-friendly thing. Well, that's the thing is like there's so much anti-corporate like sentiment around Microsoft because Microsoft has been the Windows monster for years and years. But it's like, you think Sony's any less of a corporate monster? I mean, when you get down to it.
We'll actually get into that a little bit with the third topic of the Big Six. That's sort of the overriding theme of the PS4.5 discussion that we're going to have.
The PS4K.
Yeah, whatever the hell you want to call it. And then so, Watch Dogs. I don't know if you remember Watch Dogs or not, how they handled the always online and that. So it wasn't required with Watch Dogs that you're always online. But here's the thing. If you tried to disconnect, a message would come up saying, hey, you probably don't want to disconnect that because if you do, we're going to wipe some of your stats.
You had certain skills that would only level up while you were online.
Yep, exactly. And not only that, like it would wipe some of the stats from your account, which is insane.
Yeah, but those skills were kind of meaningless. Like they weren't useful particularly, especially compared to the skills you upgraded, but with your your experience points or whatever. But it's still like my question, I guess, on things like that is like, did you think people are going to take kindly to that? Like, where do you think this is going to help you more than it hurts you?
Well, here's the thing: people complain. Like, if you Google it, you'll find just tons of articles, message board posts, threads.
And it's like there's no way to win in that situation because if you don't mind it, you're not going to say anything. You're not going to go online and be like, I love that if I don't want to be online, I lose my skills. So it's either like you either get super pissed off or you're like, well, whatever. Like there's no positive reaction to that.
Right.
Like,
and so where Microsoft learned a lesson from that, Ubisoft did not. In fact, it went all in with The Division, which is crazy because it obviously saw the fan feedback. Because, there's that whole Uplay thing that they do, and,
now it's Ubisoft Club.
Right. But they've been, kind of a driving part of this DRM thing, kind of from the beginning.
And they're trying to disguise it now as it's cool, you get to, join things and unlock stuff with points you earn through achievements and stuff. But it's still, you're still just being watched.
And you're right, and you're also just going to a website as well.
Right.
It's not really, integrated into the game, per se.
No. But, it's that whole thing, unlock things now. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll unlock things. Hey, it's just a stupid thing where I have to, use points to unlock a hat.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even use that stuff anymore. So then came Destiny. Destiny, an always online game.
It's an MMO. I mean,
kind of expected. I mean, you can say that about The Division too, though, right?
I mean, The Division and Destiny being always online don't bother me at all.
But it does bother me because we didn't get this game to review until it came out. And my eval's still not up because of that. We didn't get any lead time on it. And so it's a huge game, and I've spent a ton of time on it already. I'm still not ready to do the eval. But now that I've played it, we totally could have been playing this game.
Oh, yeah.
This game can totally play offline. Like, it doesn't need to be online. You could play it offline by yourself. It would be a lot harder. I know that because I tried to play it by myself for probably the first, 10 levels, and then realized that it was stupid and I should play with other people, and it became a cakewalk after that. But you can totally play that game offline. You could play Destiny's single-player stuff offline, although you would lose a little bit of the spontaneity. And that's one thing I would say about The Division that I don't like as much as Destiny, is you don't have, these events that just pop up that other people can help you with. Like in Destiny, just out of nowhere, a creature would spawn, and all of a sudden you have 4 people running in to help you fight this creature.
Yeah, the zone missions. And
stuff. You don't get really any of that type of stuff in Division.
Unless you're in the dark zone.
Right, but if you're playing the normal missions or whatever, you don't get just impromptu help from people.
Here's the funny thing is that I have enjoyed having The Division online all the time because I have had more people randomly, that I know that I've played with before, they're on my friends list, randomly jump in and join with me while I'm running around because you can see people on your friends list on the map and just join them. I've had more people do that in this game than any other game I've ever played.
Look,
it's incredible.
Look,
I don't know what it
wrong.
is about this game that makes people willing to jump in, whereas they don't with any other
because
game.
it's easy and it's really slick, and it's not the other thing is it's on the fly. You don't have to all sit in a lobby and wait for is he in yet? Is he? Oh, he's here. Oh, he just dropped. Is he? It's just you go play. And then everybody who's on your friends list can just find you, click on your icon, and immediately get warped to where you are. There's no organizing that needs to be done to be a part of it.
And I just find the dark zone. Now that I'm 30, and I've got a group of 4, and we're all 30, and we're running around to the dark zone most of the there is nothing in Destiny that's as compelling as the dark zone.
No. Look, I'm not arguing which game is better.
Right,
or
but
worse.
I'm saying the always online element of Division. They're both D's, huh?
Yeah.
Of the Division has enhanced the game for me in except for and I haven't had really many.
But see, I don't think that you haven't had any.
No.
What?
I mean, besides when they keep going down for maintenance and didn't tell us the first couple times, and the first night when you couldn't get on.
I have had, and look, I'm playing this way after it came out. There has been a huge patch. I have literally been kicked out of games. This is not an exaggeration. At least 30 times.
Wow.
Booted out, completely out of the game, at least 30 times.
I have lost connection on Division twice. Once because my router crashed and booted me out, and then the other night...
Sifters, in the comments, I want to see, am I an anomaly here?
2 nights ago, we got trapped in an elevator in one of the maps. You're supposed to hit the elevator and leave that map. The mission where you fight the first big flamethrower guy, when you get the tech dude.
Yeah.
We went in the elevator, hit the button, and it went dark, and it reloaded, and we were in the elevator, and we couldn't get out. We were just trapped in an elevator.
No, I just had straight
and
crash.
So we had to. I tried to fast travel out of it, and it froze on the load screen. And I had to reboot, and we lost the mission.
Are any of you guys?
But that's the only 2 times, other than launch night, where none of the servers worked at all for 2 hours. After launch day, I have not had a connection problem with that game once.
Wow.
Except for my router crashing and that bug with that mission that...
It happens to me every time I play it. Every time.
Yeah.
At least once every time I play it. Every session I've had is crashed at least once.
And then the people I play with, the one guy who has a shitty connection in New Jersey, we lose him about maybe once a night.
Right, but that's his connection. I have a great connection. My connection is beastly, generally. If I play online games, I usually have, the lowest ping in the room.
No, I've seen a ton of weird little, glitchy things in the game, but in terms of staying connected, haven't had a problem at all.
Am I alone here, guys?
So so that's after, about 60 hours.
You're right. A lot of people here are saying, play 20 hours, never disconnect once. Wow. What the? That blows my mind. I have no problems with any other games. Never dropped my connection, nothing, no other issues, never had a problem with Destiny. But this one, it just crashes all the time, and it'll come up with the screen, it'll have
Mike, 4853.
Mike or Knight or whatever.
I got when the connection problems on the first night, I got a lot of Mikes and I got a lot of Romeos.
Yeah. And that's in addition to...
And Dwayne's.
That's in addition to just their problem, like their scheduled maintenance that
Right.
seems to happen like every other night or whatever.
Yeah, on like a Swedish time zone line, so it's just that happens at like perfect prime playing time here.
Well, it happens at 1 a.m. usually here because I was playing the other night. It was 12:30, and one thing I will say that's cool about how they do it is there's like a message up on the screen the whole time.
Yeah, well, because the first time they did it, they didn't have
Tell
anything,
anybody.
and
Yeah.
it was just suddenly dropped.
It's like a countdown, which is good because you're like, okay, I can finish this mission, go back to the safe house, basically spend that 20 minutes that you spend after every mission
Right.
shuffling through your inventory and everything. So yeah, I love the connectivity of this game. I absolutely love it. When it works, it's amazing. It's slick, it's cool, it's like next gen, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, but it's not, the hassles I've been having are not worth, and I guess I'm on an island here with this, which is weird, but it's not worth it to me when I can play this game offline and not have any issues at all. And the other point I wanted to get to is that, like, so I have a little brother who lives in a rural area of our country, and he has satellite internet, literally.
Oof.
He has to
Oof.
get internet from a satellite dish.
That's rough.
And he can't play these games at all. He cannot play Destiny. He wants to so bad. He cannot play Destiny. He cannot play The Division. Like, I talked to him on the phone last week. He's like, well, what's up with The Division? Is it good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm enjoying it. And he's like, lucky you. Like, he literally cannot play the game.
What does he do that he lives out in rural wherever?
It's just where he lives. It's just worked out that that's where he ended up. So, look, there's lots of places in our country that are like that, man.
Call Google.
Yeah. So he can't...
Lay some fiber.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a terrible broadband infrastructure in this country. Like, that should really be something that is being upgraded in general here. I mean, it sucks that there's so many places that that's a big problem because
the fiber
there's
is
no reason
everywhere
they shouldn't
already.
have it.
They just haven't connected it. In fact, I can't get fiber at my place here in LA. It's the lines are out there on the street, but they just haven't tapped into it yet. And so they're slowly and they've laid down this fiber in the 80s, by the way, which is insane. It's been there all this time because they knew eventually it was going to be able to send information very quickly. So anyway, I feel like we're getting off on a tangent here a little bit. But
somewhat, but it's also that's who you should be thinking of when you talk about these always online. Because again, the Division, and if you live out in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to be playing a lot of MMOs. Sorry, that's just the price you pay. On the flip side, you don't have to wait in traffic very often.
Well, but look, there's other parts of it too, though. It's
if the thing that bothers me is stuff like SimCity or Diablo, where it's if you just want to play a solo game that's clearly just a solo game and doesn't involve stuff like the Dark Zone idea or all that kind of thing. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to play it.
Right.
Especially when it wanders into DRM territory.
Which is what
it
it is.
Bothers me.
Yeah.
I don't feel like
it's like a thinly veiled DRM.
I don't know if I feel like that about.
That's what it was with Watch Dogs, though.
It was, but I don't know if I feel like that about Destiny or Division. The concept of those games lend themselves to being online all the time.
But I'm arguing it doesn't. I don't really see any reason why this game needs to be online all the time. Sure, if I'm going to go into the Dark Zone or if I want to play cooperatively, there should just be an option there for me to play cooperatively or for me to go to the Dark Zone. The Dark Zone is kind of this weird cordoned off thing anyway where you kind of go through a gate and then it loads the whole thing in. It's basically a glorified menu anyway. And here's the other part of it too, is in 10 years' time, are you going to be able to play The Division, Matt?
I don't know. I don't think I want to.
Why not? People still play World of Warcraft.
Well, not as many as they used to.
There's still 5 million people playing it. That doesn't bother you to think that this is a game that you may never be able to play ever again at a certain point?
Not really.
Why? Look
I've
at
already
the
done it.
old game we just did last week. We talked about a bunch of old games that we loved, and Propeller. Well, these games.
Because I think the way you would play The Division 10 years from now is you'd get a cheap PC version. However you do that, and someone would have a player-run server up. It's just like all the defunct MMOs now.
But it's completely changing the business. It's I buy something, and it's really what it is it's what the graphic says right now. We're losing control over things that we're buying. These are the first steps towards it. They control everything now. They can take down the servers. I can't play the game I paid $60 for. That to me is insane. I paid for this. I didn't rent it. I didn't get it from GameFly. I paid money for this game, and they can tell me when I can and cannot play the game. For instance, I'm trying to get through the game for review, and they're just like, we're taking the servers down. I can't play the game. I'm like, man, like, I need to play this damn game. Like, that is insane. To me, it is insane.
It's not like it's new if you have a Steam account. If Steam decides to disappear tomorrow, you lose everything on that, unless Valve is nice enough to let you download everything and keep it.
Right, but I don't have a huge Steam library anyway, and pretty much everything I got on Steam was sent to me by publishers for review.
Yeah, well, most people who have Steam accounts did not get all that sent to them by publishers. They
right.
bought them.
I know,
but it's the same boat. It's the exact same boat.
Yeah, but it's not the same boat though.
It's some other entity can take the things you paid money for away, and you can't do anything about it.
Right,
it's the same thing.
So, but you're saying that's okay. Just because
I'm not saying it's okay, but that is how it is. Like, what do you want to do?
Right, and I'm saying it sucks. Like, they need to stop it.
I agree it sucks, but they're not going to stop it because that's how it works now. Certainly not Ubisoft.
See, I never agree with, like, let's just sit back and take it. Like, that's just not my personality.
Well, what are you going to do? The fucking game sold more than any other Ubisoft game has ever sold in its first week. How are you going to convince Ubisoft that they're totally doing that wrong?
Well, you can't with sales, but I feel like that was also manipulated by Ubisoft by not sending the code out early. Because right now the Metacritic's sitting at like a 7.9 for this game. And I guarantee you, if the reviews had gone out before the game came out, it wouldn't have sold that much in the first X amount of months. It still would have sold fine.
I don't necessarily agree with that because, what was it, 6 to 7 million people played the beta? They knew what they were buying. They liked what they were buying. They didn't need reviews to tell them that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, you don't know.
I mean, you play the first, 2 hours. You don't know if it's going to stay that way for the whole time. Sure, some people may have liked the first couple. I liked the first couple missions, but now I'm like 30 hours into the game, and I'm sick of the fucking missions. Like,
okay, well, how far do you have to go before you know whether you want to spend $60 on something? That's kind of the eternal question. And I mean, if I played 2 hours of something and I really liked it, and playing the open beta, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I did. I said, okay, I'll get the game. So like, that was enough for a whole lot of damn people, apparently.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who aren't happy that they bought the game. There's some people on Sifted that are like, I regret this. Like, I wish there were reviews out before the game came out. I bought it because of all the hype and blah, blah, blah. And now here I sit with a game that I played for a couple hours and I want to touch again. Like, it happens. And you know what? Over time, like, you keep doing stuff like that, it will create negative consumer sentiment. And maybe it does eventually have an impact. But
yeah, but we keep saying stuff like that about Ubisoft games, and their games keep breaking records. So
well,
who's buying these things?
Syndicate didn't. Syndicate tanked by, relatively speaking, compared to other Assassin's Creed games, so much so that there's not one coming this year. So it does have an impact sometimes. And that's all I'm saying here is that, like, what's happening to me is wrong. And look.
Yeah, but the problem with what happened with Syndicate was because the previous game was a buggy mess. It wasn't because it was online at the time.
Right, so The Division, for me, it is kind of a buggy mess. I'm having a lot of issues. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's having
but I'm not
crashes.
seeing that as a constant complaint about The Division. I'm seeing people mostly saying, like, it's boring. Like, you've done, it's like 2-3 mission types.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, those people, like, bought it sight unseen without the reviews, and now next time when Division 2 comes out, they're going to be like, wait a minute. I'm going to wait till I see some reviews for this game before I just blindly plunk down my $60. So,
probably, but that's also what keeps being said about the Far Cry stuff, and Far Cry Primal sold like crazy. So, and the reviews did come out in time for that.
Crazy, but it sold pretty well.
It sold pretty damn well.
Yeah,
it was #1.
And look, I hate the argument that like that's the way it is, so frickin' deal with it. Like I feel like if you can make a difference. You can change your behavior. You can bet with your cash, or you can make your statement with how you spend your money, and you can change things. And so I'm never the one who just turtles up and says, I'm just going to take it. Like, I'll never be that way.
Well, what are you going to do? Like, just don't buy The Division, I guess.
Well, this is the start right here. I'm talking to all the people on the stream, all the people on Sifted. Every one of those people knows 10 people, and that's how things change and how they spread. You can't just sit there in a corner and say, oh, I'm just going to take it. Like, if you do stand up and say this is wrong, maybe one out of the 20 people are like, I think it's wrong too, and then they say it's wrong, and then one out of their 100 followers on Twitter says that's right. And like, that's how change happens. And just saying that's the way it is and it's never going to change, and that to me is the wrong approach to ever take with stuff like this, because this is crazy anti-consumer. And people, hated Microsoft because they initially had an anti-consumer plan. Well, here's another one, So maybe when Division 2 comes out, people will remember this and they'll be like, you know what? I'm going to wait. And they don't have that huge rush of sales out of the gate like they did with this one. So,
but see, here's the thing: is I think the majority of people who play games have given up on the idea of counteracting this kind of anti-consumer practice. I think the ship has sailed in a lot of ways, and I think one of the reasons the reaction to Microsoft's anti-consumer idea was so virulent and so violent. Well, not violent. I mean, not like nobody.
Oh, there probably was some violence somewhere,
right? But I mean, someone probably punched a wall or two, sure. But like the reason that was so vehement, I think, was because if Microsoft had implemented that strategy, that takes away your primary recourse against this kind of against the divisions type of anti. Because like what happens basically if you're not sure you're going to like it or you don't like it, you take it back and you sell it. You sell it off. You bring it back. But if Microsoft was going to take that option away, so like at least. Kind of you're out in this situation as long as you don't buy digital. I think people who aren't sure of a game are smart enough not to buy digital for the most part. Your option is like, well, I paid $60 for the Division. I didn't like it. I played like 4 or 5 hours of it. I'm sick of it. I'm going to take it back. Get like I don't know how much money you get if you take back like a 3-day-old game.
Probably like $40,
like $40, $45 maybe if you're lucky. Yeah. So you didn't eat the whole thing. You paid about the cost of a movie to play enough of a game to know you didn't like it. But if Microsoft implements that other anti-consumer practice, you no longer have that option. You're just now Microsoft put out that poll that was like, would you sell a digital game back for 10% of the price? It's like for a $60 game, we're going to give you $6.
Yeah.
That's your plan.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather you'd give me nothing at that point. Like that just feels like
I don't even understand why
that feels like
that.
tipping me a penny.
Why are they doing that though? Because it's not like they have to like resell that exact code that you used to download the game.
Well, I think they're just trying to make you feel a little better about investing this money into the Xbox Live service you're never going to be able to get back. But like throwing $6 of credit at me is like that's
a slap in the face.
You're just pissing me off.
Here's the final angle of this whole thing, and that is that there aren't that many games that do this. Like literally, when I was preparing the show and researching for the show, I mean literally the games that we've talked about here in the last 15 or 20 minutes are really the only games that do it. Like it's not this crazy like prevalent thing that's happening all over the industry. It is still an isolated case with a very
and also look at the on our list here. Mostly EA and Ubisoft.
EA and Ubisoft, yeah.
I mean,
it almost all is, yeah. And they're the ones who have kind of adopted those policies.
Yeah.
Consequently, at least EA is one of the most hated publishers in the industry.
And also, I mean, I enjoy a lot of the games that come out of Ubisoft and EA, but they are also the two publishers that I'm just like, watch them very closely.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you never quite know where they're going. I love SimCity, but I've never played that game, whichever SimCity this was. Was it 6?
I don't even know. No, it wasn't 6.
Whatever that.
They never numbered it for this one.
They just started.
They pressed a reset.
Because that's what we do now.
Yeah,
we just reboot.
Just like Need for Speed.
Yeah. But I've never played that because I'm just like, well, no, I don't like it enough to whatever joy I might get out of that game is not going to be enough to warrant like sitting there thinking about even if it's not like that anymore. Like that's gross to me.
Yep. I mean, look, people may be sitting there watching this show either on the stream or on the archive right now, saying Shane's insane. Like it's wishful thinking. It's pie in the sky stuff. It's not. Like, literally, if enough of you guys just go on Twitter and go at Ubisoft US and complain about stuff like this, like, it changes things. Like, it really will make a difference.
Use all caps, though, so they can hear you through all the money they're buried in.
Right. But, I mean, seriously, like, you can start a hashtag. Everyone uses a hashtag. You can really affect change now more than ever. Like, in the past, it's true. Like, you really had no recourse. You were just this person living somewhere. You probably didn't even have like a mailing address to mail a letter to a video game publisher. Now with social media, you literally have a direct line. You don't need me, you don't need Matt, you don't need anybody. You have this direct line to the publisher. So to me, now more than ever, the consumer, the gamer, can actually affect change. They did. They made Microsoft completely reverse its entire strategy that I guarantee you it had worked on and researched for years. And all it took was one little social media storm for them to about face. There's so many things that have happened this way. Look at all the little uproars we have over like misleading translations or changing games or censoring games that come over from Japan. Like, it works. And so it is kind of isolated right now, which is why I haven't completely flipped my lid over this yet. If this was like every game, like I would literally lose it, and I would try to start a hashtag to stop it. But as it stands right now, we've got 6 games like ever that have really adopted this policy. I'm sure there's a few other like smaller
and I
like
still
MMOs
don't quite get on board with the Division and Destiny being on that list, but because it's you could technically play World of Warcraft on offline too if you really wanted to, but like no, it's just not what they're making. It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But there's no reason for that Need for Speed game to be online all the time, and certainly there's no reason for a single player game like SimCity to be checking whether you're a real customer or not every 5 seconds. So stop it. Stop that. Like. If it's part of the gameplay, if it enhances the experience, that's one thing. But if it's just like you want to check that I actually paid for the game I bought, like, screw you for like instantly. I mean, I know like we're not supposed to trust the companies and they're not supposed to trust us or whatever. But come on. And second, the people who actually did steal the game got around that in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're not hurting anyone but the people who actually gave you money. That's
right.
the problem I have with that.
Well, even Ubisoft has relented on its DRM.
Somewhat, but I think Ubisoft is the hardest major publisher right now to change the mind of in terms of like consumer base questioning their complaint. I think.
Well, they're also based in Europe, which.
Well, right. That's why I think Ubisoft France is just sort of like off in their own world a lot of times. Like there's places where you're just like, well, who the hell made that decision? And inevitably it goes back to the home office, And so getting Ubisoft Paris to hear, let alone listen, is one of the biggest challenges I think for consumer rights movements in the game industry right now. Because that company is so successful now, and they do things like the Division sells like that, and all they break their own records on a regular basis until they finally put out something that breaks the back, like Unity did. Which actually, by the way, I actually played Unity again last night because I had to do some capturing of it. And it is better now. It runs nicer. It's beautiful. That game is beautiful. The lighting is amazing. But in the cutscene,
the PC version of that game.
The PC version was what I was capturing. And it looks great. It was 60 frames a second, like all the image, just beautiful. But there was a cutscene that was happening, and the guy I was talking to the whole time, he had long hair, and his hair kept flipping up like a bird, like every 5 seconds the whole time. And I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't play this. Like it's too ridiculous.
Yeah.
So and that is how that game's going to be forever.
Yeah,
they're never going to be able to fix that.
You're right.
So, I hope they listen, but it seems of all the companies in the industry, I feel like Ubisoft is the hardest to strike brain.
I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, they're U.S. Army. It's a lot like Nintendo, like. NOA is,
and I'm sure like tons of Ubisoft, people here and in Canada would agree with us. Would be like, I think so too. But try calling home and telling them that.
Yeah, it's just like NOA with Nintendo Japan.
Right.
It's like Japan drives the cart.
And we'll get into that.
We shall. Yes, we definitely shall. So let's move on to the next topic, and that was a great segue from Matt. We're going to talk about the Nintendo NX controller. So. Just a little history lesson. Months ago, this patent leaks for Nintendo's new controller for its NX, or at least people thought it might be. It was an officially filed patent by Nintendo for this weird-looking controller thing that, honestly, when I saw the patent, I never dreamed it was real.
No. Looks like Stewie Griffin's head.
Right. I was just like, it's another Nintendo thing that they're messing around with that'll never come to fruition. Well, last week... a first image leaks out of basically what looks exactly like that patent, and you're seeing like other photos.
This is
right
today's
now.
leak.
These are the leaks that came out today. So it comes out last week. The first image. Everybody's kind of like, no way is that real. It can't be real. And then
I thought it looked dumb enough to be real. Yeah. Let's put it that way. I'm like, no, what?
Well,
it's dumb enough to be real. It really, because a lot of the similar types of skepticism. That's the first.
Yeah. So this is the first photo that leaked last week, and one thing I would say that made it seem like it might be legit to me is those connectors are the same connectors that they use on like dev kits and the capture units for Wii U. So. But here's the thing: that image on it looks so bad.
I don't know what the hell you're looking at.
I'm like, that's got to be Photoshop.
But here's the thing I love. You see in the upper corner, this is today's picture. It's zooming in past, but up in the upper right corner, you can see there's a picture. There's like a tree reflected in like the screen there.
Yeah.
There were people I saw who were trying to compare photos of the outside of development studios to find that tree.
Well, they figured out who it was.
Did they?
Yeah, it's actually the developer of The Division.
Massive?
Yeah.
Because someone found a tree that looked just like that outside their office.
That's who it was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. The internet. Love it.
Which also means that is 100% real.
Yeah.
And look, it's a prototype. Nintendo's prototype controllers generally change a good bit before they're finally released.
A little bit, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that one does too.
The prototype DS looked a lot different from the final retail version.
But what you're looking at right there, that's
probably it.
That is the NX controller. I mean, they may end up adding like maybe grip handles to it, I'm guessing, because that was part of the prototype. They're actually like typical controller handles on it. Maybe there's something that retracts on the bottom of it.
Well, and then you can see the little B button on the lower corner there.
But see, it's not a button.
It's not a button. It's on the touchscreen. But there is also there seems to be a lot of haptic feedback thing going on here, and there is a patent that Nintendo has for something that basically raises buttons out of the touchscreen, so that you would be using.
You could actually feel.
It'd be like you'd feel it like a remote control with like bubbles on it, kind of. So there would be a tactile feeling of a button there.
So there were a few things that were kind of announced, not announced officially, of course, but were kind of leaked along with these images today. The analog sticks are kind of like the Circle Pad Pro, and that they kind of slide.
Yeah, like the base there doesn't actually move. It's more like they slide around like I guess they're sort of more nubbins than sticks.
This is just
they click, I guess.
Right, and they also said this is just the controller. That there's a separate piece of hardware that comes with the controller. I mean, look, you're looking at the next Nintendo handheld right now.
And there are like haptic feedback scroll wheels on top.
Scroll wheels. All right. So now that we've talked about all the information that we have about this thing, let's talk about what we think about it.
Nintendo had a good run. I don't know what else to say. Like, I look at that and I'm just like, what?
I know.
There's got to be more. There's got to be something else. Like,
well, remember there was a little sticky note in the first image that says, "You will say wow."
I did.
I
did say wow.
Not for the reasons that I said it for, like, the Wii.
I say wow when a guy in a Prius cuts me off, too.
Right,
I mean, it's not always a good thing.
And not for the reason, like I said it when I first saw the 3DS have 3D with no glasses. And not even, honestly, for the same reason why the first time I saw the Wii U, I was pretty impressed with it. Like, this was like a wow, what are they thinking wow. Like... First of all, nobody
that wow is followed by really.
Yeah.
For sure.
Who wants the screen to be covered with their... I mean, look, mobile, iPad, whatever. Maybe you're used to covering the screen with your hands, but
not
core
really.
Gamers, there's no need for it.
With the sticks and the nubbin things, and like, I don't...
There's an oval screen, Matt.
What am I doing with that? I mean, this really looks like they are going all in on the mobile idea.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's a phone, basically.
It is, yeah. I mean, or a Vita.
Yeah.
But
the fake Kazurai Twitter account had the thing of the morning, I thought, where it's like, oh no, the new Vita design leaked. And it's like, it does look like the new Vita. It does look like a Vita design.
It does look like it could be like the new Vita.
But I mean, I look at this thing and I'm like, I don't see them. This is not here to play the games I want to. This is here to play like Pokemon Go.
Well, listen, here's the thing. So if you actually go back and you look at the patent for this, there's some kind of crazy display technology going on with it. It's like it does like holograms or there's some kind of way that the image lifts up off the screen.
Yeah, I think that's related to how the buttons work, where it's like the screen is malleable somehow. It can be manipulated by things underneath the screen.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's more to it. And look, it could be a case where eventually I do say wow, when they show the thing off at E3 or whatever.
Clearly this is not how Nintendo wanted us to first experience this.
Yeah, and it is kind of a shame that this has happened, because Nintendo's usually pretty good about keeping leaks under wraps, but not this time.
No, this is... I mean, they've had some leak problems, and I wonder if there's going to be any repercussions for Massive, because at the same time,
for sure.
Well, yeah, but Nintendo, wants to be like, rah, 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 but it's like
third parties, they need them.
You can't really alienate Ubisoft at this point, can you?
Yeah, because they may be the only person that's or the only publisher that's in your corner right now.
And really. They owe Ubisoft for a couple of generations of support beyond what any other third party did.
And here's something else that lends credence to the fact that this is probably real, is that, so yesterday, Nikkei, the newspaper in Japan, reported that Nintendo had halted production of Wii U consoles. No one was really all that surprised. I think it was kind of one of those inevitabilities that everyone was like, well, that sucks. Like, it's probably time to put the cap on it and call it a day. Well, Nintendo actually comes out and says, oh, no. They like respond to it and say, oh, no. Wii U production is still happening throughout the year. That report from Nikkei is wrong. Nothing has come out of Nintendo about this. They have not come out and said, not even the usual...
There was one tweet from someone who works at the Treehouse, and then that was deleted.
What did it say?
Nothing. It just retweeted the link to the NeoGAF thread about it. It was just like, hey, look what's going on, and then that was gone after that. So the silence really seems to lend some credence to...
We didn't even get the typical line that we always get, which is we do not comment on rumors or speculation. Right. Like that's what we always
Probably because this is not really a rumor or speculation at this point.
Exactly.
We're through the fucking looking glass on this one, boys.
Yeah. Also, how about Nintendo just lying to us about not making a console handheld hybrid?
Yeah.
I mean,
did you ever believe that?
I didn't, and nobody did, but I'm sure they've rationalized it in some weird way in their minds. Like, well, it's not really because it's who knows?
I mean, it looks like someone stuck analog nubs on like a fingerboard. Yeah. Like, I want to do like flip tricks with it. I don't know.
I don't know.
And again, God, the fingerprint. There's gonna be fingerprints all over that damn thing.
You can see it in the one photo.
Happening.
There's prints on them. Yeah. Again, this photo, you can see the prints on the edge there. Again, just more proof that this is some real thing and not just some, 3D model or whatever. So, Matt.
Hey. I
mean, look, we could see it at E3, and it could be mind-blowing. It could be some crazy thing where, creatures come out of your console and, jump in your face. Who knows?
Yeah, Mario's nose could be more 3D than ever.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, but again, it always comes down to the games. Is there something I want to play on it? Then I'm going to look twice.
But my question about this is just playing with this thing over extended periods of time. How comfortable or uncomfortable will it be? To me,
I don't know, it looks too small to be comfortable for my hands.
I mean, how do you hold it? I mean, that was one of the things that made me think it was fake. Was how do you hold it to play?
But the other thing is, because
Nintendo's really good with ergonomics typically.
Everything we're asking here is the same stuff people asked when the Wii controller was first shown. If you go through the old threads for that, it's like, how are we going to hold? I'm not going to use that for an hour. There's no way. It's like there's not enough buttons on it. There's no, it's like that's the whole thing.
So there's no buttons on this.
Yeah, there's no buttons on this one. But it's like, I mean,
just a buttonless controller. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
That's really bad.
Well, not if it's got functional haptic feedback that creates buttons on the screen, like that patent they have.
But Matt, we complain about D-pads and buttons when they're not perfect on normal controllers.
Well, that's why it's interesting to me because Nintendo has always been so anal about controlling its hardware because they want the hardware experience to be seamless when you play it, and it seems like this would be a much harder hardware situation to control on that level. But maybe part of that is because Iwata's not calling the shots anymore. That's the other thing is we aren't dealing with old Nintendo. We're not dealing with Iwata's Nintendo. We're dealing with people that think they need to move in a new direction and do something very different and change up how the public is. They're looking. I mean, I think if you're Nintendo internal right now and you're the ones designing this system and you're looking at that, you're like that looks like something that whether it's good or not, the mainstream media is going to report on that.
Yeah, that's the quote-unquote Nintendo difference. The Blue Ocean strategy that they followed with the Wii and tried to follow with the Wii U and failed miserably.
Yep.
I mean, look, here's the thing that's odd for me is that I loved the Wii as soon as I saw it. I was totally hook, line, and sinker all over it. I liked the Wii U when I first saw it. These promo videos that we're showing right now, there's some really cool stuff in these things. The problem is, it never happened.
Yeah.
It never came to fruition. And some of the things that did, the drawing thing, Nintendo promoted that element of it so little. It's the average person who bought a Wii U had no idea it actually came out. They ended up being these weird eShop only releases.
Yeah, they really need to work on the eShop promotion. I mean, the Wii U will throw up things Pokken Tournament's out right now. Go get it. It's but there's other stuff on there that's not a AAA Nintendo published release that heads up on the eStore, and I didn't even know about it until I dug through and found it one day.
And you know what? Nintendo Japan actually promotes all that stuff on its YouTube channel. Every single eShop game gets trailers on Nintendo of Japan's YouTube channel, or trailer at the very least. Like even for like all the little backwards compatibility games, like they put up gameplay showing what Nintendo of America does. None of that. You never see any promotion on its YouTube channel for any eShop stuff at all. Like maybe if there's like a huge eShop sale, but like they don't even, like for instance, like Sony and Microsoft's YouTube channels. So Bethesda will put up the multiplayer trailer for Doom. Well, it goes up on Bethesda one day, the next day it goes up on the Xbox channel and the PlayStation channel. You don't get that with Nintendo, though. The only thing you ever get on Nintendo's YouTube channel is a Nintendo-published game. And, like, again, it's just one of those ways that Nintendo is still lagging behind the way the rest of the industry handles marketing and media and outreach to its fans. So,
but they even do that with their own published games. Like if it's not one of their top-line tentpoles, like good luck seeing anything for Art Academy.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like they put out trailers on their Japan. Like there's the new Disney Art Academy. That's like literally it was announced like 2 weeks ago in Japan, and it's coming out already. Like they put out like 3 trailers for it on the Nintendo of Japan. Like after the last Direct happened. Here's another example of it. Last Direct happens. Nintendo literally published like 4 or 5 videos from that Direct and the whole archive of the Direct. You go to Nintendo of Japan, you go to Nintendo of Europe, and they have way more content. Like, I don't know what's going on at NOA.
I don't know. It seems to mirror the whole Amiibo situation, too.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Because, like, there's no shortage of any Amiibo in Japan or Europe or Australia, but you try to find a Fire Emblem Amiibo in America. No, doesn't. Doesn't exist. Go on Amazon or eBay, pay $30 to $50 for each one. You know what I did? Because I wanted the Fire Emblem Amiibos, so I could have the characters in
That's
Conquest.
Amiibo.
Don't care.
The plural is
so
Amiibo.
Don't care about your made-up weird-ass words. So especially when I can't fucking buy them. Like maybe if you like distributed them properly, I'd pronounce your goddamn word right. Okay. So like I wanted the Fire Emblem guys, and like I couldn't find them anywhere. So there were like people selling them on eBay for like all 4 Fire Emblem guys, $120. It was like so I bought all 4 of them. For was it Robin and Lucina? I bought all of them for $15 each from a guy in Australia who shipped them to me for free.
Yeah.
Exactly the same item,
right.
Slightly different packaging.
What happens is they reissue them or whatever, and then
and sometimes,
the market falls
But why
out.
didn't you reissue the Fire Emblem ones when the Fire Emblem game came out? Like, where is the synergy here?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you go to Toys R Us and look for them, it's just this giant wall of Animal Crossing characters no one gives a shit about.
Yeah.
And those will stay there forever because the retailers will not order new cases of these products until the old ones sell off.
Yeah.
And no one wants like 14,000 owls.
Yeah.
So that's it. Like that, And I don't know.
You're right, though. Nintendo is like the one hand is not talking.
No, and I don't know. And like you see pictures of I saw pictures from Germany of an Amiibo section, and it's every single character they've ever released. Each has like its own line, and they're all full, and it's all the way across the shelf. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, why? Why can every other Nintendo country version get this right, and Nintendo of America is just like, I don't know, just send all the Pikachus. I don't know.
You know what it almost feels like with the NX is that Nintendo is reacting to, because you were talking earlier about how this product, the mainstream press is guaranteed to
Absolutely,
cover.
Yeah.
And look, any Nintendo product, at least console or handheld, is going to get covered by the mainstream press.
Yeah, from the perspective of like a tech reporter, I think that controller's pretty sexy looking.
Right, but here's the thing. Like, I almost feel like Nintendo is looking at this from the perspective of, well, with the Wii U, there was all this confusion over, is it just a new controller for the Wii? Well, with this one, there's no question about any of that.
No, definitely not just a Wii
No one's going to wonder if this is like a brand new system from Nintendo.
When they announced the Wii U, I remember, because I was in the Master Control booth when we were covering that conference, and we had Adam and everybody out on the out at the location reporting on it, but we were controlling it from the the home booth back in the studio. And when that thing was shown, as the Nintendo conference was ending, everybody was on comms being like, is it a Wii controller, or is it a new
exactly
system?
The same,
and it wasn't until immediately after the conference ended, of course, you got the email with the press release and everything, and I opened up no, it is a new console. It comes with a separate thing you put the disc in, it's a totally new console. But what they showed at the actual press conference, didn't get that across at all.
Well, the other problem, too, is if you look at the hardware from the front, it looks exactly like a Wii.
Right.
Oh, like, after they...
Slightly
I was at
curved.
that press conference, and, like, certain people were allowed to kind of go backstage afterwards and actually play it. And I went back there, and, like, I was like... Because on stage, it looked just like the Wii.
Right.
But when I went backstage and, like, looked at it, you could see it was much longer.
And
And I remember I took a photo of that and, like, posted it on Twitter or whatever, and people were like, oh, my God, okay, so it isn't exactly...
I remember I mentioned that photo to one of the hosts, because they were like, I don't know if it's... I think it looked like it was just like a Wii. I'm like, I just saw a photo that Shane put up from Game Trailers, and it's longer. It's not the same box.
Yeah, it was deeper, but I can totally understand where a lot of people would have complete confusion.
But they never showed that off. They showed the controller and everybody using Wii controllers, so I think the confusion was totally understandable.
There won't be that confusion with this at the
Definitely
very least.
not.
But I think that's oversold a little bit too. Like, I really don't think that was one of the main reasons.
No, I don't.
A lot of
think
people throw that out as like the main reason
No.
the Wii U failed. Like, I don't think that's it at all.
I mean, it didn't help in terms of the run up to the launch, but I don't think you go into a store and see the display and not understand it's a new system. I think you just don't care.
Exactly. Their problem wasn't even really at launch anyway. It was sustaining something after launch.
Right.
So,
and so do you think they will call this system something with Wii in it?
No. Nope.
But do you think they'll call it something that has two eyes in it?
Nope.
Even though they've got Mii's and Miiverse and Amiibo and all that, they've kind of...
I would say that's an outside chance because they have kind of used that II as like a brand at this point, but I don't think so. I think at this point they need to cut bait, and I think they'll realize as well that they need to start something new. I mean, the other part of it too is like, we'll start talking here next about kind of the future of consoles and how they're going to be handled.
What if they call it the Wii Tree?
The Wii.
And it was given away by the presence of a tree.
Yeah.
In the foot. I mean, it all fits.
I just think that Nintendo learned a really hard lesson with the Wii U, and I think it's going to want to completely rebrand its console line.
I just wonder because somebody posted on Twitter, I saw, it was like a graph of Nintendo's console plus software sales over the years, and it started with NES and moved on.
Yeah.
And it's just a 45-degree line down, and then you hit
a spike with
the Wii, boom,
yeah,
and then it drops
back
down. And if you take the Wii out, the Wii U is exactly on the same line from the GameCube.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, that's where they're going. And
because the Wii wasn't, it wasn't Nintendo fans that made the Wii popular.
Right. Well, I showed
people who never really play video games.
I showed it to one of my dev friends, and he's like, "That's really good. You should see if you can find the data for attach rates, and I bet they'd be the reverse, where the Wii's up here, and for software, like the Wii's up here in sales of units, and the software is down here.
The Wii for sure.
Whereas like attach rates were high for all the other systems, and
I think the curve, if you eliminated the Wii out of the equation, I think the curves for both console sales and attach rates would probably follow that same line down.
But I think the Wii, his point was that the Wii had a vastly lower attach rate than any other system.
It did, despite selling really well. Yeah. Nintendo made all its money on hardware that gen.
I mean, you had 100 million of those things out there, and Super Mario Galaxy sold 13 million.
Which I actually wonder if that's really true that it sold that many.
I don't know, but that is
you're right. That's terrible.
Is a dismal attach rate
for a
major, well-reviewed, well-regarded Mario title.
More than well-reviewed. It's one of the best-reviewed games of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
All right, so it's time to move on. I think just to close things out, Matt, are you more excited or less excited for NX after seeing the controller?
I'm more scared.
More scared?
I'm afraid that this is going to be some kind of... Well, yeah, because, I mean, I bag on Nintendo pretty regularly. But
it's easy.
But I don't want to see an industry without them.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather them not have to be forced into that Sega position of going third party and hoping things work out for themselves. And obviously that wouldn't happen within like a generation or anything.
We see what happened with Sega.
Yeah, we're just going to see where it goes from here. But I would like to see them have some success, also in the sense of having to push Sony, because if Microsoft is really backing off of this Xbox thing, in terms of sort of turning it into a consumer grade computer idea, I would like Sony to have some damn competition in the future. I will say, it wouldn't be hard. I mean, I know there's a joke image of it going around online, but it would not be too hard to build, like, like a Google Cardboard style VR viewer for that controller.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so like there's potential there.
Yeah. Here's what I would say. Ironically, I'm more excited for the NX after seeing this.
Yeah.
Because it's just so crazy.
They must have a plan. Like there must be more to this than what we're looking at here. It's just a piece,
and I think that may be the hardest part for Nintendo to stomach right now, is that looking at that controller by itself doesn't tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
And look, we just railed on it for a while. I'm sure every podcast this week all around the industry is going to have a say on this.
And maybe we're wrong.
And probably it's not going to be very kind, but one thing I will say is that it is different. And it's like, I'm more excited to see the NX than I would be to see the PlayStation 4.5. Segue.
But I still say the Nintendo difference has done nothing but shoot them in the foot for the last 15 so years.
Yeah, but you know what you're going to get with the next Sony and Xbox hardware.
Yeah, well, for once I'd like to know what I'm going to get with the next Nintendo hardware.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know that I'm going to get a good Mario game and a good Metroid game and a good Zelda game, and I'm going to get it within 5 damn years.
Yeah, I feel like if all you care about is just getting the next iterations of those games, then they should just go third party.
Maybe.
Because otherwise, what's the point of making your own hardware? If you're not going to do something different, there's really no reason to just... look, they did that with the GameCube. They made the hardware the same as everybody else. It was a failure as well, so...
Well, they didn't make it the same as everyone else because they made it use discs that couldn't actually hold as much as they needed to hold keep up with the other multi-platform.
There were multi-disc games. Like, there was ways to work around it.
Yeah, but nobody wanted to. Like, that's the thing is, like, until they become a dominant force again, you have to making a multi-platform version of a multi-platform game for their system effortless.
Yeah.
And if you have to start doing, because I just see the same old thing on this where, like, okay, you've got the controller, you can do all this cool shit, but can the hardware run Assassin's Creed 6 or whatever?
I'm not really worried about that part of it at all.
And if it does, are you going to have to devote extra development time to doing all these stupid human tricks with the controller? And is anyone even going to care? And now do you have to program in like the fact that like every game uses its own control scheme because you use the haptic button creation thing to like create your control scheme on the controller? That's cool and all, but like what does it take to make that? I hope they are keeping in mind that even if they get third-party support on board for launch, if it becomes a pain in their ass, they're not going to keep doing it.
Well, I think you're probably going to be able to use the alternate controllers that have been released for Wii U and for Wii. Like I would see
packing in the Pro controller.
I don't even know if they'd pack it in, but I just think that they'll make it compatible with it for people who don't want to use this wacky contraption that we're seeing right now. So.
Here's the thing: if this controller is able to kind of morph itself in that regard, maybe they actually are taking the tactic of making the new system kind of a all-in-one Nintendo history box, and that controller is designed to sort of mimic whatever you need to mimic to be able to play things throughout the years.
Could be.
I'd be into that.
Yep. All right, so we got to move on, people. We spent a little bit too much time on that topic. Next, we're going to talk about another crazy story that came out this week. So we've already talked about Microsoft has talked about...
Yeah, with the modular system upgrading.
That was my insane idea, was just snapping on the modules onto a console. Well, oddly enough, now Sony's actually talking about releasing a 4K-capable PlayStation 4.
Which would be way more powerful than the current one.
Oh, I mean,
what would that even be?
Just think about the PC that you need to run games at 1080p versus the PC that you need to run games at 4K.
That's huge.
It's a huge gap. Like,
I mean that's 4 times the resolution.
Right.
And the PS4 as it exists can barely hit 1080p with like what percent? Like 10% of its library right now.
Maybe. Yeah.
As far as like the big AAA stuff.
Like real games. Yeah, not like simple like indie stuff. They all hit 1080p, but I don't believe it, Matt. I really don't believe it at all.
Again, dumb enough to be real, but I have a hard time believing that Sony thinks they can sell you a PlayStation 4 and they can sell you a $400 VR headset and then they can sell you another PlayStation 4 for probably more than $400 to run that PlayStation headset better. Around the time they're going to have to start selling you another PlayStation headset because VR technology is jumping ahead very quickly. And these headsets are going to have lifespans of about 3 years, I think, before they're made obsolete. And I mean, you're asking someone to spend somewhere close to $1,500 on this generation on your stuff alone.
Yeah.
And that's not even including software.
I mean, I honestly have a really hard time believing this is true, but on the flip side of that, like, this was reported first by Kotaku.
Yeah.
Kotaku, I can't remember too many times where Kotaku has had to retract an informational story.
True. But I think Pachter made a good point where he said that, I think it was on GAF, because he started a thread about Pachter Factor on GAF, and people started asking him questions, and he said something like, he's skeptical about the PS4K thing because he doesn't believe that if there had been talk about that thing, that all the talk would have only been overheard by people who were at the same outlet.
Right.
And he thinks it's weird that no one else is kind of corroborating it.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, that's what getting a scoop is.
True.
I mean, that's just the way news works. Somebody gets, and here's everyone else is reporting it, which to me is a huge key that there's probably some validity in it, because I can guarantee you, especially with sites like Kotaku and Polygon and GameSpot and IGN, like, their news editors, they all know each other. And I guarantee you that most of those sites contacted Kotaku and was like, look, is this source solid? Because, we'll run it and we'll push to you guys, but if you're basing this on some flimsy bullcrap, like, we're not gonna. Like, sites communicate like that.
But didn't you just say you don't believe it?
I don't believe it, yeah. I'm just saying what could lend to it being true and what is kind of pulling me in that other direction that it might be true. I just think it's implausible, in all honesty. But look, crazy things have happened in this industry.
Yeah.
So it is possible. I just don't personally think that it would happen.
Right. Well, I mean, what are you thinking as Sony? That it's like, you know what? I bet after a couple of years of this, they'll be so fed up with how shitty the performance is of the existing PS4, they'll want to buy a new one that runs smoothly in VR.
That might be the thing, is that they put it out in October with PlayStation VR. And they're like, look, this will work with your old PlayStation 4.
You think it'll be coming that soon?
Why not?
The cost!
The cost of what? All the components have gone down. The price has gone down. Right around now is when they would start talking about what we've been seeing in some of these videos, which is a slim version of the PlayStation 4.
I still think you're looking at a $600 system there.
Could be. But
minimum.
Look, people are willing to fork out $400 for PlayStation VR like it's a drop in the bucket. I mean,
$1,000 VR bundle with PS4K included.
And you got that software library of PlayStation 4.
And in the end, it's like, hey, still cheaper than the other two.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, so look,
because the $1,500 Oculus thing is kind of bullshit.
It is. Really, I mean, look, you're gonna limp through those VR games with a $1,000 rig.
And the Vive, forget about it.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Because that is kind of funny though. It's like, okay, let's say there was a bundle that had the PSVR and the PS4K. It came in at a rounded $1,000. You're still only $200 over the Vive.
Yeah,
and that's not even talking about the hardware you need to run Vive stuff.
So I saw Rowdy Wabbit in our chat here says, well, Gawker really needs money now.
Well, this predates that, though.
It's not even that. It's like, the amount of money that you're talking about that Gawker needs is...
And no one at that level is going to be tasked with making that money. That doesn't make sense. Look, if the thing with Gawker, and we'll get to that later, but like if what happens with Hogan, Gawker actually ends up having to pay that, Gawker Media LLC will declare bankruptcy, and when they're in Chapter 11, they are going to be legally required to sell off their assets, which means all those blogs will be sold to someone else.
That wasn't even the angle I was going to take, though. The angle I was going to take is that, like, you make so little money off display ads.
Well, yes.
Like, for this to have any dent, and, people, like, always throw this out there, like, whoa, they did that because they need money and for ad revenue. You make so little money on ads, like... You would have to, like, kill God on camera to, like, and fake it to, like...
But it's also, like, no one at any of those blogs right now is in any kind of position to be, like, thinking about what they can do to save the company from Hulk Hogan.
For writing one story.
None of that makes any sense.
I mean, even if they had 100 million people come to that article and read it, and look, I'm guessing it was probably 2 million or 3 million or something like that. Even if it was 100 million, they probably still would have only made like $20,000 off of that. Not even. They wouldn't even have made 20 grand off that story.
That's not even going to buy a tank top, brother.
This whole website put up gave this game a bad score to get hits. Like, that just doesn't happen. It doesn't work. Like, you're not going to save your company by giving, like, The Division a 1 out of 10. Like, it doesn't work that way. You don't make that kind of money off of views of video and, like, video ads. Like, the number that you need to do something like that
there's
is
no such thing as, like, oh, we finally got our gold article that
Right.
like made all the money we'll ever need
Right.
because
It
a bunch
doesn't
of people
work that
clicked
way.
on it. Like, it's not,
That's why you see websites that have like 20 display ads on a page because they get paid so little for each one. Like, literally, like, if you go to a web page and there's one ad on it, your visit to that web page was worth like 1/8 of a penny. Like, that's the rate for display ads. Like, 8 people would have to go to that page for that website to make a penny. Like, that's why you go to web pages that have 20 on it, because then they're like, well, at least we make 3 pennies every time somebody visits this web page. Like, that's the level of what we're talking about. So all the garbage that people say about, oh, well, they're just doing it for, like, the hits and the revenue, like, it doesn't work that way. That's a total falsehood about the games journalism, or any journalism for that matter. So, I don't know, Matt. I would say that there are some good reasons maybe to do this.
I feel like you'd be catering to a very small sliver of PlayStation 4 owners and potential PlayStation 4 owners.
Yeah.
To the point that you wonder, what's the point?
Well, I don't think it even is for existing. I think it's for new customers. I mean, look, some people will upgrade, obviously. But I think it's just for the new people who want to buy it. And, you can say it splits your user base, but with a PC architecture, it really doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something on the original PS4 would run at 900p, and maybe something on the new one would run at 4K. But, like,
I mean, the only thing, and we talked about this
scalable.
kind of with the other part when we were talking about Microsoft and their upgradable hardware, is that, you have developers who make it lazy. So if they know they have this older market there that has this extra power, and they're like, before they had this one closed system that they had to write their code for, and they knew it had to work on that one system, they might get a little lazy with their optimizing and things like that.
You're seeing a little bit of that with Hyrule Warriors Legends right now, where if you don't have a new 3DS, you are not having a great time with that game.
Yep, and Nintendo has not officially announced anything along those lines. It hasn't issued any warning saying, hey, if you have the first 3DS, you might want to think twice about this. Like, that's all been uncovered by, like, Digital Foundry and other publications examining it, and I only have the original 3DS, and I did get the game. I haven't even put it in my 3DS yet to check it, but we've curated a comparison that Digital Foundry did. I think it's on the site today. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's plausible, but I still think it's highly unlikely, I guess is the best way to put it. But again, coming from Kotaku, I know a lot of people bag on Kotaku sometimes, but they're usually right with the stuff that they leak.
They're not wrong very often when it comes to, like, the crazy rumor stuff.
The people get mad at, their stance or whatever, how they cover stuff. But the fact of the matter is,
there's a little more piracy encouragement than I would probably like.
Yeah, but I mean,
but that doesn't make them wrong.
Right,
when
they
this
break
stuff.
Stories or have leaks, they're almost always right. And I think
it's like TMZ. TMZ is a scummy organization, but they know every single time a celebrity died. Yep. They know before everyone else.
And they even scoop, like, ESPN for sports stuff now. Like, it's insane. So
just because you hate someone doesn't mean you shouldn't believe them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a lot of faith in Kotaku's reporting. I would be really surprised if this is wrong. And look, Stephen Totillo, like, he's on that stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
he's not. He doesn't take that lightly.
He's very concerned about this stuff. I worked with Steven at MTV for a number of years. I know him very well. He used to come on Bonus Round on GT all the time. And, like, he's buttoned up, man. Like, we're going to talk, our last topic of the Big Six is about where gaming journalism is headed. And he's part of that guard. He's real journalism, and he cares very much.
Crawford Hanna points out they're always right about Assassin's Creed.
They are,
That's true.
I mean,
and Ubisoft probably wants to guard against them more than anyone else at this point because they've had problems with them, but they still find out.
They still find a way, yeah. So I don't know. It just seems insane.
Yeah, but
I mean, it really does seem insane.
Like I said, crazy enough to be real.
To be talking about it now. Yeah. I mean, the system.
But at the same time, I said way back, back when they launched those systems too early.
Yeah, you said it over and over on this show.
They were not. They just were underpowered for what they were going to end up wanting to do with them, and I think Sony is really hitting that wall now.
Well, the other kerfuffle this week was the whole Quantum Break at 720p, and I can tell you, I'm playing that game right now, and you would never know it's 720. The game looks amazing. Like, only once Digital Foundry did a pixel count were people like, "Oh my God, it's 720!" Like they had never said anything. No one would have ever said.
I'm really over how many P's.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's just like console gaming used to be kind of mercifully free of all the tech niggling like that. Like the whole this plus this, refresh rate did it. I was like, I'm just gonna play a game. I'm just gonna game my PlayStation 2. I don't care.
Yeah.
But now that's just sort of that's all anybody talks about.
It's just a pissing contest for console wars. That's all it is.
Especially, I bet if the Xbox One was better at the P's than the PlayStation 4, we wouldn't hear about it nearly as much.
Of course not. Yeah.
But
so funny. So I don't know. I would say right now, I would give it about, man, that's tough to gauge. I would give it a 35% chance of being true.
I'll give it a 45%.
Really
I'll give it a 45% chance of being true because 4.5, if you move the decimal point, is 45.
Yeah.
And Pactor doesn't think it's real, so that gives it 10% more viability.
Yeah. You're taking the anti-Pactor equation.
I'm gonna go that way and just see how it rolls. I don't know if there's any basis in fact because I haven't really been tracking Michael Pactor's hit rate.
Yeah.
But I figure he must have a pretty good one if they're still paying him that much to be at Wedbush.
Exactly. So, yeah.
But in this case, I'll play contrarian and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next topic of the Big Six. We're going to talk about game difficulty. So, this week Nintendo announced that Star Fox Zero will have an invincibility mode so that younger players can enjoy the game and not have to worry or get frustrated if they can't proceed. The internet freaked out.
Where were you bastards when you put Blaster Master out?
Yeah, exactly.
There were children then, too.
Yeah. The internet freaked out and went ballistic on Nintendo, people sending them angry messages to their Twitter account. Matt, is this worth an uproar?
No, just don't play that mode.
Right.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Like, what are you worried that someone who didn't earn it is going to finish Star Fox? You might want to consider what you've wrapped your ego up with.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. The psychology that is going on under the hood here with this, I think people are afraid that, I really can't understand the whole thing, to be honest with you. But trying to figure out why people would act this way, I feel like they're afraid they're going to, lose their elite status for finishing a Nintendo game?
I don't know. It's not like there's achievements. I don't get it. I don't get it. Especially in an industry where it's like if you go online, any PC competitive game for 5 seconds, you're going to see someone using an aimbot and a wall hack.
Yeah.
It's like, how is it's part of. Some people just want to finish things. Some people just don't care how they get there. And in this case, it's like, here, we'll just give you the cheat mode. Screw it, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. But if your game ego is really that bruised by what a 6-year-old is doing with a game he can't play properly, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I just think it's insane that
don't play it. Don't use that mode. It's just like the thing where in the Mario games where if you can have Luigi play the level for you or whatever. It's then just don't do that.
It's almost like Nintendo needs to, if someone's playing it on the invincibility mode, it needs to put a little icon up on the screen or something.
Anyone playing Star Fox Zero on that mode, she has the asterisk.
Right. Yeah. It's like the scarlet letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the it's like the steroid asterisk for athletic records.
Because I could see a very, very, very small segment of consumers being a little miffed by it. The speed runners. I could see where they're or just people who are competitive or who upload their leaderboard, their times of leaderboards.
I'm sure this won't be the same leaderboard though.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. Well, if there is a leaderboard for the game, which with Nintendo,
probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. But so I can see maybe that angle, but not really.
Also, things like this always have some kind of telltale sign. Nintendo. Nintendo's gonna make it glow gold, or the ship will glow gold, or leave fairy dust behind it, or something to show that it's
Well, there's the Tanuki.
It's not like you're gonna be able to fake I did an amazing speed run and I never got hit once. It's like, well, it's going to be obvious.
Well, there was like the Tanuki suit in Super Mario 3D World for Wii U, where like if you died a bunch of times in a row, you could basically smash a box and get this suit that made you invincible. Mm. And look, I don't care what anybody says. Everybody used that suit at least once. Everybody. Anyone who says that they did not use that suit at least once, you're lying. I know you are. I used it. I'm not going to lie. I used it several times.
I haven't played that game yet.
But you have it, right? I thought you.
I got it for $20 on their sale a couple weeks ago, but I haven't even finished Twilight Princess yet. I'm plugging away.
You're backloaded on your Wii U.
Yeah.
No, said no one ever, except for Matt Kyle.
I got here like 3 years late
in 2016. Yeah, exactly. So that's the beginning, the genesis of this topic. But what I wanted to talk about is kind of extrapolating that over other games. So. Mm-hmm. Dark Souls. Mm-hmm. How would you feel if Dark Souls 3 had an invincibility mode?
I don't care.
You don't care?
No. I don't care what anyone else does in their game.
Yeah.
I don't even watch people play shit on Twitch because I don't care.
Maybe the better question would be, what do you think would happen if Dark Souls 3 had an invincibility mode?
Well, I think NeoGaf would literally catch fire.
I think you meant. And burn to the ground.
Burn to the ground. I think and many other forums as well, yes. And Twitter, and people would lose their shit. People would lose their shit that the casuals are going to be able to play their game.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about, that whole elite thing.
I'm just saying I don't care.
Yeah. I don't care either. I would pray to God Dark Souls 3 has an invincibility mode. I would love for them to retrofit Bloodborne with an invincibility mode. I would immediately go back and play that game, or even just an easy mode where it plays like a normal hack and slash, where you hack somebody 6 or 7 times and they die. Like, I don't, we've talked about Bloodborne ad nauseum on this show. I've talked with Marcus about it on the show. I've talked with you about it on this show.
We're about to hit Dark Souls 3, so buckle up, boys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's actually out there in the wild right now. In case, also, if you didn't know, it's like out in Japan, and there's a kind of a little workaround you can do with Xbox One to start playing it now before it comes out in the U.S. That is up on Sifted right now. If you want to find it, just go to the Dark Souls 3 page, click the guides option on the channel nav, and it'll be right there. So anyway, I would love it. But you're absolutely right. Like, the people who play these games, I almost don't even feel like a lot of them play it because they absolutely love it. I feel like they play it to say that they play it, or to say that they finished it, and it wasn't that hard.
To be honest, it's one of the reasons I ended up playing, because I was supposed to review Demon's Souls when I was on XPlay, and I played it for like 2 nights, and I was like, I am not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Like, it was too difficult. I didn't quite understand how anything worked. And it's the only review in the history of me reviewing things for the last 16 years of my life. It's the only one. I came back to the editor-in-chief and I said, you need to find someone else to review this because I pretty much hate it because I don't understand what I'm doing.
Well, Demon's Souls also was like really crotchety.
Demon's Souls was pretty janky.
Well, we played
in a lot of places.
We went to Tokyo Game Show, and they had that game out on the floor. And Ryan Stevens and I sat there and we laughed at that game for like an hour. Like, literally, and it was just as hard. Like, literally, we died like over and over. And Ryan Stevens and I just sat there, we're like, what the hell? This is like the worst looking game we've seen on a show floor.
It was rough.
In like ever. And then Ryan Stevens is like the world's biggest like Souls fan ever.
Right.
Like,
but like the reason I ended up playing I played Dark Souls when it first came out, and I was like, it didn't really grab me. And then I went back and I played it again later because it became such a phenomenon. I was like, well, I guess I got to know what this is. Yeah. I got to do this. And then Dark Souls 2, I finally got all the way through it because Dark Souls 2 is a lot easier than Dark Souls 1, and I think more traditional in its design, which a lot of people hold against it. And I can see why, because the level design of the world in Dark Souls 1 is vastly more intricate and well thought out than Dark Souls 2. But Dark Souls 2, I think, is a pretty good introduction if you're like having trouble getting your head around that series. Dark Souls 2 is very straightforward. And like then when you've got kind of the mental tools to go back and play Dark Souls 1 and really kind of grapple with it. Bloodborne, I think, is pretty easy too in the end.
Yeah.
Although very different. So, like, I played those games in some part because, like, it was such a phenomenon among, like, these hardcore people that I felt like, well, not that I have to master it and speed run and do a no-hit run and da-da-da. I'm just like, no, I should know what this is.
Right.
And especially because, to me, those games are basically what Castlevania should have become.
No, agreed.
Like, I think those are the modern Castlevania, because Castlevania is fucking
hard as balls.
Like, those games were hard, and they were made to be, I mean, you don't jump backwards and fall down the bottomless pit when you get hit in Castlevania 1 because of an accident. They made it that way.
Well, I think the more recent ones are much easier.
Oh, yeah. But
the
original, like, 1, 2, and 3, maybe just 1 and 3 more.
You
and
basically
Dracula
had to memorize the whole game.
Oh, yeah. They were hard.
Yeah.
And they were designed to be hard, and the controls were part of the difficulty.
Yeah.
And I think Dark Souls is similar in that regard. Also, they're dark and gothic and crazy. But, so yeah, I played them because I felt I had to. And eventually I was playing them because I enjoyed it. I mean, I played Bloodborne because I liked it. I played through Dark Souls 2 because I had to review it, and it was a job, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. And there were a couple times when I mostly just wanted to snap the disc in half. But I made it, and after I got through it, similar to what you remember when you loved Ninja Gaiden, the original Xbox, and I'm like, I don't get it. This is annoying to me more than anything else. And I finished it. And I started it again, and about halfway through the second level, I came back the next day to work, and I'm just like, I get it! I get why you love this game so much! And something just clicked, and now I love Ninja Gaiden. I probably played it like 8, 9 times all the way through. And like Dark Souls is kind of like that to me. It's like, oh, I get it now. I'm not a crazy Dark Souls fan or anything now. I'm not, I don't care if they put an invincibility mode that is not tied up in my identity as a video game player, but like, I get it. Like, I understand why people love this game and see it, because there isn't really anything else like. I mean, there is now because you've got Salt and Sanctuary and all these games that are sort of aping it coming along from the indie circuit and stuff, and you've got like fake ass stuff like Lords of the Fallen that doesn't understand why Dark Souls works but tries.
Well, here's the thing that I would say that really drives this point home for me personally, and makes me believe that like a lot of people would really flip out if they had like an easy mode or an invincibility mode in this game, is because remember when Marcus and I had the discussion about Bloodborne on GameFace, and we brought in a guy who had reviewed the game for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and the way I framed the discussion was, if most people aren't going to enjoy playing this game, should you give this game a high score? Mm-hmm. And like the Bloodborne fans freaked out over that, man. I mean, freaked out. Like it was the most, like before we moved the show away from YouTube and onto the site, it was the most watched episode of GameFace ever because it ended up being posted on NeoGAF, and all the NeoGAF people came in there, and like we had comments like turned off or whatever, so it didn't. But like the down votes were like insane for it because people were offended. They're like, oh, you're saying if most people aren't going to enjoy playing this game, like it doesn't matter. Like it's just, how do you review a game like that? So, but here's the funny thing about it is that like, we've had a bunch of new subscribers over the last month and a half, and at least 5 or 6 of them have basically said, like, in comments, like, I did not subscribe to your site because of what you said about Bloodborne. Seriously, Matt, I'm not joking. Like, literally.
Which is funny because it's like, well, they also want Bloodborne and those games to be really, really popular and everybody to know how great they are. But I feel like that series has basically hit its ceiling unless you start making it more accessible.
Well, they're like...
So they don't want that, but they do want that.
Well, they're like, oh, I'm glad I gave your site a second chance or whatever. But honestly, like, that really hurt Sifted, like, at launch. Because NeoGAF is important in this industry. And, all those kids on there just, like, railed on Sifted. Well, if that's the way Sifted's gonna be, then I don't want to be any part of that way. Of one thing that I said, like, they doomed, in their opinion, like an entire freaking website over this series. So you can see the fervor that the people, like, I feel like people, you're right, it's like an identity that people have built up. And, like, they're proud of it. They're like, I'm good at Dark Souls. I'm good at Bloodborne. Like, I don't care. I don't care if anyone's good at anything.
But that's it's like this weird thing where I don't think they want Bloodborne to be like a 10 million seller. I don't think they want Dark Souls 3 to sell COD numbers.
No, they don't. They want it to be
but
like their little thing.
But they also want everyone to agree with them that it's the greatest thing ever.
It's the best thing ever, yeah.
I mean, and you see stuff that's like, oh, The Witcher 3 was great, but it should have had Dark Souls combat. No, it shouldn't.
No.
Like I would never want that game to have that. Like, Diablo should not have Dark Souls combat, people. Dark Souls should have Dark Souls combat.
Right.
Like, it's this weird mentality of like, this is the greatest thing I've played ever, and so everything should be like it. But if everything's like that, why is that the greatest thing ever anymore? Because then it's just everywhere.
Yeah. Look, I don't know.
And believe me, you do not want someone who doesn't understand why Dark Souls combat is great to try to make Dark Souls combat.
No.
Like, that is not going to work out well for you.
You're absolutely right. But I don't think I have ever seen a game or a series like this, where people are like, one, you're right, like it's this like little elite club where they're like, oh, if you don't like Dark Souls, you're not in the club. And
it's not that little. Really, it's very common.
Well, it's like 1 million. It sells a little over 1 million copies, which is
But no matter, I mean, look, I can't recall the last thread on something like The Witcher or anything that has swords in it. Even Zelda. Like, there's people that was like, Zelda U should have Dark Souls combat. I'm like, I don't even know what to talk to you about.
Well, look, a certain part, it depends on what they're talking about. Like, certain parts of it I agree with. Like, the timing of the combat is great. Mm-hmm. Like, the responsiveness has gotten really good.
And the hitbox. That's the thing. And Dark Souls 2 drops the ball a little bit on this. But Bloodborne picks it back up, and Dark Souls 1 is almost flawless. The hitboxes, if that sword doesn't contact the literal flesh or armor of your character, it misses you.
But see, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with
but that's how it's supposed to be.
Like, I love the combat in these
that game has, Dark Souls 1 probably has the best hitbox detection of anything I've ever played.
And look, I honestly would be okay if that combat came to Zelda. But the problem is that, like, it shouldn't take, like, 20 minutes to fight every rank and file enemy in the game. Like, all you need to do is just crank down the hit points on the enemies, and I would love it. Like, I love the combat. The combat feels great in these games, and the options that you have available is great. The different stances. And I know in Dark Souls 3, like, every single weapon has, like, some unique element to it with how you fight with it. Like, I love all that. But making every encounter with just some cut and paste enemy, like life or death, that's what doesn't resonate with me. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just not something that I enjoy playing video games. So
I think that's why they love it so much, is because everything matters. That's the draw to a lot of people that love those games, and I get it. Is that everything matters? Like you can't just take that dude, like one little zombie with a spear, for granted, because that motherfucker could kill you if you don't.
I get all that. I totally understand it. It's just not.
And yeah, the 15th time you run through the same area and you have to like really focus on the fight with this guy that you don't even care about right now, who's not going to give you enough souls to matter. Yeah, it can get annoying, I guess. But like, that's dark,
That's why the game,
Dark Souls.
Right, that's why the game sells 1 million copies instead of, like, with the combat and its production values and everything, it should sell a lot more than it does, in all honesty.
I mean, they could, if they wanted to, I'm sure they could do a game that plays like Dark Souls but doesn't have the Dark Souls kind of philosophy that would probably sell Witcher level.
It would sell better, but you know what? All the people who love the Souls games would be like, screw that game.
They'd be betrayed. It would be betrayed.
Screw that game. They would not buy it.
No.
Just like they refused to come to Sifted, they would not buy that game.
But it's like, if you reach the right audience, it doesn't matter that they don't buy it.
Right. Well, yeah, because it'll end up selling way more.
But I think that's also part of what happens with the kind of the phenomenon that's happening with Dark Souls and the fan base is like they're worried that it's going to get taken away from them in that regard. This thing they love is going to
But as long as it
changed.
Still has like that original mode that they can all play, and they can still have their little badge of honor saying, I beat it the way it's supposed, quote unquote, supposed to be.
I mean, in the end, I don't think it would be, if it was just like, you switch to a certain mode that like turned off achievements and made you either really powerful or made the enemies really weak or both or whatever. I don't think anyone, after the screaming was over, I don't think anyone would like not buy the game because
all I would really have to do is just chop the hit points down per enemy to like 20%. That's really it. Like, I'm even okay with like getting hit once or twice, like really does a number on your health, as long as I can just hack down an enemy in a few attacks instead of having to spend like 10 minutes on each one of them.
I don't
playing this weird cat and mouse thing.
See, that's the thing is like I don't run into a lot of enemies I can't kill in 1 or 2 hits in these games. If you're upgrading your equipment properly, there's a lot of upgrade path stuff you got to experiment with. But I mean, I don't that to me does not solve a problem that I would have like, in terms of making the game easier. Because to me, like when I have to run into a new boss in like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, it was always like it was never like, oh my god, like it's gonna take so long to kill him.
The bosses are insane.
But for me,
it takes like 1,000,000 hacks to kill them.
Oh, not really. Like the thing for me with the bosses in those games is you got to learn them, and I'm like, well, I'm walking into my death here. Here we go. It's like I know I'm going to die because I have to go through at least one battle with this boss to see what he does, how it works,
at least one,
all that stuff. But like I've never really found them to take too long to kill. That's not.
I've watched a lot of boss battles from this game.
The only one, and the only one I really had a ton of trouble with, there's every once in a while you get that one guy who's, the big dude with a long sword who's in one room and you can't get away from him, and that's good. But like the difficulty on the Dark Souls games to me is a little overstated in the sense that like it's hard to learn the systems of the game. Once you understand how it works, the challenge is just in your reflexes and whether you're keeping your stuff upgraded properly. If, for instance, like playing, I played I do like Dark Souls 2, even though I know it's kind of the black sheep of the series. And I got the Scholar of the First Sin for Christmas, and I put it in. People like, it's Christmas. Christmas is for fun. Christmas is good times. Christmas is like, and I put it in. I'm
You're
like,
hacking away at Dark Souls.
Do I really want to play Dark Souls on Christmas? But I played. I'm like, I had a great damn time. I got through like the first third of the game in like one evening, and I was just like, oh yeah, I know how to do here. I know, things are a little different because Scholar of the First Sin mixes some stuff up. But I had a great time. It was like visiting an old friend, and like so. Like, I think it's just a matter of, like, you have to learn how everything functions, and we're not used to doing that anymore. We're used to a game sort of giving us a tutorial screen and a text thing and telling us, this is how you do this, and every time you run into this, this is what's going to happen.
Well, I think we're also older, and, like, we value our time a lot. I mean, that was one of the big tenets I built Sifted on, is it's for older players who don't have the time to dedicate to games, not just playing games, but also, engaging with them on another level as much as they used to, because they have kids and they have a career and whatnot. And I think a lot of people who have careers and maybe have a family, it's hard to rationalize playing a game like that in its current state. It's like, I just spent 3 hours playing this game and I made it through like one area.
Yeah, but if you're playing it right, you still manage to save some of your souls. You still manage to upgrade your character a little bit.
You made
progress, a little easier next time. And eventually, you'll get past that. Especially, part of my problem was early on. I wanted to use big swords. I wanted to use the big swords, and it turns out I suck with them.
Yeah.
And like the game Dark Souls 1 got a lot better for me when I just started using what I wanted to use, what I decided I was better at, which was just sword and shield, and that became a much better experience for me. And some, I don't like, I'm used to games, I think we're all used to games in the modern era where, like, the game is willing to bend over backwards to let you play how you want to play.
Right.
Whereas Dark Souls is like, you can play how you want to play, but you better be good at it.
No, it's like the Ford Motor Company. You can have any color you want as long as it's black.
Right.
It's like, you can play the game however you want as long as it's hard as balls.
Yep.
So, Matt...
Also, I went back recently and played Demon's Souls again, and holy shit, that game's easy now.
No, really? Because you're just used to the whole system.
I just understand how it works.
Yeah.
Like, that was the hardest problem, was like that. Those games do not give you anything.
Yeah,
like, they do not explain how the system... And, to this day, I don't understand how the tendency system works on Demon's Souls. But, like, or Light and Dark or whatever, I have no idea. But, like, because I can go into Demon's Souls now and I understand how everything works and I've got much more experience with it, like, I'm probably more like, level 1 Demon's Souls player sucks. Being like a level 10 Dark Souls player playing Demon's Souls is a much better time.
All right, so let's get back on topic, because this actually wasn't just supposed to be about, like, the Souls series.
And we'll have time for that when Dark Souls 3 comes out and you hate it and I don't.
Well, we don't know that yet. I might like it. I never have a preconceived notion of any game before I play it. So
I'm my not a prediction, but like my joyful hope would be like, it comes out, all the Dark Souls fans hate it, and you love it.
I would say the chances of that happening are 5%.
Very small.
Yeah, very small. So here's kind of the final question I want to pose before we move on is it ever not okay for a game to have a variety of difficulty settings?
As long as it's not like a competitive game, I don't see why it matters.
Me either. I can't understand why anyone would care that a game had an easy mode.
Like, just don't play on it.
Why do you care what other people do?
Games already have easy modes, and I don't play on easy. I just ignore it.
Like, I don't care how other people play games. All I care about is that people are enjoying themselves while they're playing the games. Like, I don't care how they derive that enjoyment. They could go into a corner in a Mario game and just jump up and down for 6 hours. If they like that, that's fine. I'm not going to watch them do it, and I wouldn't have fun doing that, but I don't care. All I care about is that they're enjoying themselves and getting enjoyment out of this medium, however they want to do it, within certain reason, I guess. But yeah, I just can't understand why people would care if any game had an easy mode or an invincibility mode. I just don't care. Like,
if you're talking about a single-player game or a cooperative game, I don't see the point of limiting that.
Yeah, I mean, a competitive game, like, I don't even see how that would apply to a competitive game because everyone would be playing on the same difficulty setting anyway, so the cream would still rise to the top, so to speak. So.
Well, but then that difficulty setting doesn't even matter then.
Yeah.
Everyone's even. I'm talking about, like, okay, so I'm going to play this online shooter, and the online shooter has an easy mode where my bullets do twice as much damage as everyone else's.
Or like someone has like an auto aim or whatever. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
But, like, you know, that would be crazy to put in a game because that's not the point of the game. You know, like, something like Star Fox Zero, it's like, well, you're not like competing with anyone.
It's also
you're just playing it.
It's also a game made for kids. I didn't want to say that, but I did anyway. Well, because that's the real truth. Yeah, and that's what Nintendo knows is that there's a lot of kids that play their games.
Yeah, especially when their 30-year-old fathers are done playing them themselves.
Right, and there's also lots of big kids like us who like to play their games. And I feel like Nintendo's pretty good at that. Like, it usually doesn't even need a difficulty setting in its games because of the way it ramps things up. It's like the 5 or 6-year-old will only ever get so far into the game.
Yeah.
But they're okay with that because they're also okay with playing those same first 5 levels over and over again.
And maybe you get, like, one level further this time, and it's great. And
Star Fox, though, I can see it, though, because it is a little more of an involved... It's not just running and hitting one button to jump. Like, it is a little more complicated.
Yeah. Star Fox is also a skill set we don't see very often
You're
anymore.
right. Yeah, the 3D flight game is almost gone at this point, unless you play VR.
Yeah, VR is probably going to bring that back.
A revival, yeah.
But, yeah, and also with the aiming, you know, it could be a very complicated motor skill set for a younger kid. I get that. And I'm just not going to play that mode.
Yeah. And I don't care if someone else does.
No.
I don't care at all. In fact, if the choice is I do not play this game or I play the game on easy, I want the person to play it on easy. I want them to experience it. I want to be able to talk with them about it and share our experiences. I want to hear what it's like to play games on easy.
Right.
I'm never going to play them on easy, but I'd like to hear their perspective of what it's like. Games can really change based upon the difficulty setting. You may end up liking a game a lot more or hating it a lot more depending on the difficulty.
Yeah, because let's not forget that, like, easy difficulties can sometimes just make a good game boring.
It can, totally, and make people not want to play it. So, look, the bottom line here, people, is that we want as many people playing video games as possible. The more people that buy consoles and buy games, the more money that comes into the industry so that they can make more consoles and more games. That's what we want. So I don't want to hear anybody ever discouraging someone for playing games, no matter for any reason. Like, to me, it just seems insane. Like, it goes against the community of gamers, so to speak. Like, we should be inclusive in inviting people in, and whatever it takes to get these people in. Like, this isn't like some elite, like, super cool club. Like, this is a club we want everyone to be a part of, because the more influences...
We're not super cool?
No, I'm not. Definitely not. We want as many people in as possible, because the other thing about it, too, is, like, the more perspectives you have coming into the hobby, the better chance you have of, like, unique game experiences happening. Like, I don't know.
My only caveat is if you have achievements for difficulty, you better make those things stack.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if I beat normal, give me easy and invincible.
Yeah, yeah.
So
most games do, though.
Every once in a while, you run into one that doesn't.
Which is total malarkey.
Yeah, like the Earth Defense Force games do that. Why would I ever want to play that game on easy, very easy mode?
Yeah. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of that game.
But like it just like it'd be just like one more difficulty below easy that I ignore.
Well, who would ever want to play it on an easier difficulty after beating it on a more challenging one? That's insane. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, the reverse is true, obviously.
Yeah, or you start on very easy and work your way up, but then that's boring to me.
Yeah.
Because there's no challenge.
No challenge, yeah.
But if somebody who doesn't want that challenge, just wants to, that's the thing about the Dark Souls games to me,
We're going back to Dark Souls again.
But like, well, because that's the difficulty thing when you think of it. It's like the shame of how hard they are for a lot of people to first get into is like there's so much cool visual shit in those games that I mean, it sucks to me that so many people will never see the gaping dragon in Dark Souls 1 because that's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Like, and I've said it before. Like, I love everything about that series, but that. Like, I would love to be able to play through these. And look, I don't want a cakewalk. Like, I'm okay with a challenge, but I don't want torture either, I guess is the best way to put it.
But I'm just like, I'm not a huge, like, ooh, difficulty, we're going to conquer the difficulty guy, and I can't categorize the Souls games as torture in that regard. You just gotta spend more time with them than you've been willing to spend with them at this point. Yeah. Because more time than I was willing to spend until I started getting paid to do it for one of them. And then somewhere like 2/3 of the way through Dark Souls 2, it clicked for me, and I got it. And I could go back to Dark Souls 1, and I could do it.
Yeah.
So just keep on keeping on. Maybe Dark Souls 3 will do it for you.
You never know. Could be. I stay positive with this stuff. I think someday I'm going to break on through to the other side.
Mm-hmm. You live stream, everybody can encourage you.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anyone would be encouraging. It'd be laughing. Pointing and laughing at me.
Hey, Jeff Green's practically made a second career out of that.
I know he has. That's pretty crazy, actually. I'm not typically bad at, like, most games. I'm not even really bad at that game. I just don't really have the patience for it, I guess. Yeah. I think in my mind, in general, like, I'm always... Like, I just multitask. Like, today I'm getting ready for the show, and, like, while a video is rendering, I shave. Like, I literally, like... try to intelligently spend like every minute of every day. Like, I just feel like I can't waste any time. When you run your own business, I just think you just kind of get in this weird mindset where you're like, I can't waste time. I got it. While something is happening over here, I need to be doing something over here. And so especially with that mindset, since I launched my own company, like I think my patience for something like that may be even less.
Yeah, that is not the mindset to have for Dark Souls.
Nope, definitely not. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about cross-platform play. Something that Microsoft floated at GDC, basically saying we would love for this to happen. Sony, kind of painted into a corner here.
Yeah, kind of like, we're okay. If developers want to do that,
well, that's what they first said.
We're open to it.
That's what they first said. And then they were basically like, well, there are like business reasons that we wouldn't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. Here's my thing. So
but only Microsoft holds players back from Utopia.
Right. Well, so okay, let's first talk about the advantages of cross-platform play. So, for instance, Destiny. So, there's a lot of people that love Destiny. It's been a huge online game ever since it launched. It has a massive dedicated audience to it. The day the Division launches, Destiny turns into a ghost town. I don't know if you saw like any of the reports, but literally, like, everybody was gone, like, overnight. And they may never come back. So, if this game has cross-play functionality, cross-platform functionality, suddenly, instead of it being completely empty, there's, like, still enough people to, like, actually play the game. The same thing could be said about maybe Call of Duty isn't a great example of this. But, Call of Duty, Black Ops 2 still has, like, a bunch of people playing it. But there's other ones, like Ghost, for instance. Like, people went in mass exodus from that game pretty quickly. There's some people who really liked it. I've seen some people who said...
Very well named at this point.
Exactly. I mean, I've met people who say that that's like their favorite Call of Duty, believe it or not. Like, everyone has their own opinion on what they like in games. So maybe the Ghost player, if Call of Duty was cross-platform, maybe that person who really liked that game could still go and play Ghost multiplayer. Like, so it works for big games. But I think really where you start to see it is for some of the smaller guys. So let's take Japanese fighting games. We talked last week about, at least in my opinion, I feel like Street Fighter V is pretty much bombed at this point. It appears that fighting games, unless you're NetherRealm Studios and Mortal Kombat, are turning into like even more niche than they were before. So you have a game like King of Fighters 14. Even among people like us who love fighting games, King of Fighters is niche inside the niche.
Yeah. It's not your top tier fighting game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, some people would say it's their favorite fighting game, and some people like it as like their fighting system and prefer it.
But it's never going to headline a tournament.
Right.
Unless the tournament is specifically King
of
Fighters.
King of Fighters, right.
I mean, I love SNK fighting games. I'm not trying to tear down King of Fighters, but it's King of Fighters has always been an also-ran next to Street Fighter.
So let's talk about King of Fighters. So the game comes out. It'll probably have that, some curious people who will buy it at launch week. Mm-hmm. And the fans, of course. SNK does have a pretty big fan contingent. First week of that game's going to be great. Second week, going to be okay. Third week, starting to get a little sparse. Fourth week, hard to find a match. If it's on one platform. But if that game is on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and PC and all those players can play together, it extends the longevity of that game for fans. It could extend it into infinity, in all honesty, or at least for a full year or more. Like, there are huge advantages. I mean, even look at, like, Tekken 7. I mean, again, with the appearance that fighting games are starting to lose some of their momentum at this point, like, even Tekken 7 could be a game where, after a month or so, things start to get a little sparse in the leaderboards and in the community. So, to me,
it also takes off the pressure of, like, everybody. There's a lot of talk with a lot of fighting game fans when new games come out. Everyone's like, well, what version are you getting?
Right.
Because, like, some people want to stick with Xbox because that's what they have a stick for, because they got it for Killer Instinct. Some people want to go with PlayStation because they have sticks for that they're compatible from the PlayStation 3. Some people want to get PC because that's what they play everything on. And, like, so everyone's trying to work. There's some people that are friends or, like, have to train against each other. They can't play each other because one of them got the Xbox version, one of them got the PC version.
Well, it's like Capcom went on record to say, and this is total bullcrap, by the way, I don't believe it for a second, but what they went on the record to say was the reason that Street Fighter V is exclusive to PlayStation 4 is because they did not want to split their user base. They're like, we want everybody who is playing Street Fighter to be playing on the same platform. That way, everyone who goes to tournaments and all the esports stuff, everyone's on equal footing. And it doesn't turn into this, like, well, which version are we using at this tournament or that tournament? I don't believe it for a second.
As part of it,
money hat is why they...
Somewhat, but the other thing is, the other reason I think that happened is because the guys who made Skullgirls had written a driver for PlayStation that let PlayStation 3 compatible sticks run on the PlayStation 4 if you used that driver in your game. So,
right.
Like, you can take their driver, put it in your game, and you can use PlayStation 3 sticks, and that's what Street Fighter V did. You cannot do that on the Xbox One because Microsoft keeps its controller stuff proprietary and secret.
I think that has nothing to do with it at all.
I think it has more to do with it than you would think.
Maybe very slim
because they knew their audience was going very hard PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because they knew they were going to be able to keep their sticks.
Yeah.
Killer Instinct isn't enough of a draw to get people to buy.
Yeah, but most of their fans didn't have PlayStation 3s. All their fans had Xbox 360s. They didn't have a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 3 stick.
But a lot of those sticks are cross-compatible.
Yeah,
it's a very
cross-platform.
It's a very simple mod.
But again, there's another example why cross-platform is freaking awesome.
But you can't use your Xbox 360 sticks on the Xbox One. I have like 8 of those damn things, and they're all basically useless now.
Okay, so we talked about all the things that's great about cross-platform, and there are many. Actually, let's not even move on. Let's talk about shooters. So there are some shooters that are really good. Some that are just basically multiplayer focused, like Rising Storm 2. It's a great multiplayer shooter. It has like this huge niche fan base. But games like that, they have like their month of release. People play them online for a month, and then they go back to Call of Duty, and eventually the community is so small that everybody stops playing it, even though they love it, because there's nobody to play with.
Because you can't start a game.
Right. Singularity is another shooter from the past. It probably could have had decent legs if it was cross-platform.
I forgot that even had multiplayer.
It did. And yeah, it totally did. And like people really enjoyed the multiplayer, but it was so small that after a while, after a certain amount of people drop off, you feel like you're kind of all alone out there.
It's like you and the same 5 guys.
And eventually you're like, well, I'm not like a part of the crowd now. Like I'm playing this weird game with like these 5 freaks from like New Zealand or wherever. And so you move on yourself. I just feel like games like that could be a lot more viable, and not only would it make it people more apt to purchase them, knowing that maybe they'd have a longer legs, but it also would encourage the developers to work on multiplayer modes for their games that they know aren't AAA, big budget, top shelf releases that are going to get a lot of love at retail. BioShock, there's another one. Like the multiplayer in that game just like lasted like 2 weeks. But I guarantee you, if like that multiplayer was spread out across 3 platforms, it would have lasted a lot longer.
3 platforms.
Right.
I don't see you got to be careful with the shooter thing, because if you include PC, I think you've just doomed the console players.
You're absolutely right. Competitive.
Like, it doesn't matter in a fighting game because everyone's using the same stick or whatever. But like, I think
or a control pad.
Yeah, but I think Call of Duty, I think it'd be cool if they could do, or games like that, they could do PlayStation and Xbox and just sort of mesh the communities, or even. I mean, I don't know how hard it is to like do that after the fact, but if you could actually do something where like, oh, this game's community is starting to flag, we should, activate cross-platform.
Merge them.
And do that.
I mean, you should just have that from launch, though. I mean, I can't see any reason why you segregate and then integrate.
But, so, I mean, I think that's a good move for just about any game, though.
Yeah, so we talked about all the good parts
and
of
sports
cross-platform
games. Think about
play.
how, last year's sports games, a lot of people abandoned them, and that would help keep those.
You're absolutely right, and it would keep you from having to. I know maybe it's one of the reasons the publishers don't do it, is because it would keep people from upgrading the next year, particularly with the sports game, even with shooters, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we just uncovered why the publishers won't freaking do it. That's what we do here on Sifted. So, can you think of any downsides other than that one to cross-platform play?
No.
From Sony's perspective.
Well, no. I mean, like, I don't know what I guess they don't want to have anything to do with anything related to Microsoft one way or the other, but it's just like, in terms of like your experience on PlayStation, I don't see how that would change anything.
See, I can see why Microsoft wants it to happen, because, they're losing. They're not just losing, they're getting their butts kicked, but having PlayStation customers mingling with their customers, who knows?
Man, can you imagine like the clans that would, like the Xbox clans versus the PlayStation clan, like the console wars, like
on the battlefield?
Yeah,
it could be awesome.
It could be pretty great.
Yeah. So here's my perspective on this. So Sony's been like non-committal, and like the last thing it said was kind of like, from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense, but. I really can't see where it wouldn't make sense.
Well, I get
because they're also intermingling with the Xbox and PC consumers as well, so there's just much opportunity for cross-pollination.
But I think maybe if it doesn't make business sense statement is more like, if we don't do this, it helps to slowly choke Microsoft to death on the vine, because like part of why Microsoft would want this is like, so their online stuff, multi-platform online stuff, doesn't dry up so fast. Because like I think that's what they're worried about is like, the lower user base, the lower sales on Xbox will lead to, I don't want to buy this multiplayer game on Xbox because I know in the past I've done that, and the community, like, there's no one to play with after a couple months. Yeah. But if I get PlayStation, that's a much bigger community, a bigger install base. So I wonder if some of Sony's reticence to this is like, well, it doesn't make sense for us because we're helping Microsoft by allowing this. And while it is a more pro-consumer angle, it doesn't do Sony any favors in the process, because they would, I think, prefer that Microsoft gets strangled off slowly and become like, they want that person to be like, I'll just get the PlayStation version.
But it does do Sony well, first of all, Sony's consumers, I feel like it's a huge boon for them. And if you're Sony, you do care about your consumer satisfaction. I mean, being able to play with your buddy who only owns an Xbox One on your PlayStation 4, that's pretty freaking cool, man.
Yeah, but from Sony's perspective, I think you'd have to be like, well, it hasn't stopped them from buying the system so far, so what good, it would be better to like, continue on what we're doing and have that be a bad thing for our main competitor rather than add this slight little boon to the people who are paying for PSN now, I might add.
Right. Well, people pay for Xbox Live too.
Yeah, but they weren't always paying for PSN, and so I wonder how much of that is like... well,
here's what I want to say about this whole thing is that, Sony has portrayed itself as like the savior of the consumer. We swooped in and saved you from that evil Microsoft who didn't want to let you sell your used games and wanted you to be online all the time, and we're the champion of the people, and like there is that aesthetic like out there among otaku and gamers that Sony cares about us. Here is Sony's opportunity to prove it really does care about consumers, because let's be honest, the decisions it made at the beginning of the PlayStation 4's lifespan had nothing to do with caring about consumers. It put that makeup on its face because it had that opportunity because Microsoft announced its stuff first, and it sees an opportunity. But don't think for a second that Sony actually gave a crap about the consumers. Like, all it cared about making money. And it knew that if it played this angle of, yeah, we're like pro-consumer, pro-gamer, all about the gamers.
If you're so pro-consumer, make a controller that lasts more than a year.
Yeah, well, if you're so pro-consumer, the ball's in your court. Let us play with people on Xbox.
Yeah, but then you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to play Rocket League on my PlayStation. Oh, look, there's a guy dressed as the Halo Warthog. Hey, I sure like Halo. Maybe I should get an Xbox.
Oh, come on.
That's what they're thinking. That's what Sony's
insane.
thinking.
You cannot consume video game media without being exposed to other video games. You just
but
can't.
Sony sees that as helping.
Helping what?
Microsoft.
How, though?
By making you think of Halo while you're playing a PlayStation.
You're also telling the people who are playing the game on your PlayStation 4 that you don't need an Xbox One to play this game. You're smacking them in the face with it. Look, you got it. And chances are you're playing it at a higher resolution than people on Xbox One.
But they're not worried about Rocket League. They're worried about the game that they're reminding you of that you can only get on the Xbox.
I don't see that at all.
You don't see it because you're not a corporation. Like that. I mean, that's what they're thinking. That's what's in their head when they say maybe this isn't such a good idea. I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying that's what they're thinking.
Here's what I think. I think Sony's bluff is getting called right now. I think Microsoft might even have might be having a little bit of fun right now because look, they've been stepped on and spit on by gamers for being anti-consumer, but Microsoft knew all along that it screwed up. And it made a mistake, and it also knew that Sony was going to do the same damn thing, but once it saw the backlash over the Xbox announcement, it reversed course and then suddenly put on the pro-consumer outfit and started doing a little jig. And so this is kind of Microsoft like saying, okay, Mr. Pro-Consumer, here's your chance to really prove it. So we're down with opening up our ecosystem and working with you guys. How about you? And like you said, Rocket League... You know, Sony at first tried to say, well, we don't know if it's technically feasible, and then
did it. They're like, everything's done except the politics.
Like the next day. Yeah. They were like, we've got it figured out. Here's the code. Go do it. And now it's well, business.
I think Sony's going to end up having to back down. I think it's just, because people want it, and it's already proven to be feasible, and eventually Microsoft's going to get asked about it again, maybe at E3 or whatever, and they'll be like, Go ask Sony.
Still waiting.
Like, we're ready. Go for it. And, like, at a certain point, Sony's either got to, give it up and do it, or, like, admit that they're, like, not, that the decision's not being made with their consumers' interests at heart, and that is not going to be a good look for them.
So I saw something from Cade Bolt in our chat saying the only reason Microsoft wants to play ball is because they were behind.
I would say that is part of it, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. If Microsoft was like dominating, you think they'd want anyone messing with their ecosystem, their walled garden? No, not at all.
I don't understand how it hurts anybody.
Because you just don't want anyone thinking about your competitor when they're using your product. Like, that's just basic corporate speak. Like, that's like when I'm playing from Microsoft's perspective. When I'm playing an Xbox, I should never, ever think about a PlayStation. When I'm playing a PlayStation, from Sony's perspective, I should never, ever think about an Xbox. Nothing should remind me that there is another world over there. That's their thinking. I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's in our best interest as consumers. I'm saying that as a corporate entity, that's what you're thinking. You don't want them thinking about the other competitor at all, unless it's to think about how much that competitor sucks in comparison to you.
But here's the thing. What if you don't even know whether someone's playing on Xbox or playing on PC or playing on PlayStation?
Sure. But like what I'm saying is,
how would you know?
Because that's not what they're thinking. I think what you're thinking is a situation like Rocket League, where each platform kind of has some of their exclusive car bodies and stuff.
Also look at it. This is also a chance for Sony to promote to the Xbox brand. It's a symbiotic thing. It's like this is their chance to scoop up what Microsoft has left.
Yeah, but conventional corporate wisdom does not know what the word symbiotic means when it comes to two competitors. Like that, like you're talking about crossing a line that has been, drawn in the sand forever. Like It's from a corporate point
Gabe
of view,
Newell's on board. He's ready to do it.
Yeah, but Gabe Newell's insane.
He's not insane. He's a genius.
Well, yeah, but that sometimes is the same thing.
I don't think he's insane at all. I think he's probably one of the 5 smartest people in our industry.
That doesn't matter, because if you ask the people in charge of making decisions at Sony and Microsoft about something like, even I'm sure if you go above the Xbox level at Microsoft, you say, hey, they're thinking about doing this, and Gabe Newell's on board with this. They're like, well, Gabe's fucking crazy because Sony's the ones that are doing what's good for the business, because they're trying to keep you away from that competitor in every imaginable aspect.
Here's what
that's
I really
why this is so
to.
hard for them to. And I'm sure this also goes back. I'm sure maybe Sony America is kind of cool with it, but Sony Japan, doing that is like that. I mean, has Microsoft approached Nintendo about this too? Because I'd love to see their reaction.
Nobody plays Nintendo games online.
But that would be very beneficial to Nintendo then.
Would it?
No, because nobody makes their multi-platform games.
I don't think it would be beneficial to anybody other than the consumer, who will have more people to play with. Maybe you just make a mandate like no icons, so you have no idea whether someone's playing on Xbox or PlayStation or NX or PC.
But what about do you for something like Rocket League? It's like no Halo stuff on your car.
Whatever. That's one game.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon that there's platform.
What other games
stuff.
have platform exclusive cosmetics in them?
Well, you have early access DLC, so you'll know that anybody wearing that particular helmet is playing on a PlayStation.
Most people don't know that. I don't know that. I work in this shit every day, and I don't know that. I couldn't play, I could not go home and boot up Black Ops 3 right now and tell you, oh, that gun's only available for Xbox. I have no idea. And I do this all day, every day.
But again, I don't know what you're arguing here, because, you've been in corporate environments.
Yeah.
You know how unreasonable that shit is.
But it's not. There's lots of times that corporations work together and do cross-promotion. We did it all the time at Viacom. The bottom line here is that, there's an opportunity.
Is one thing, but you weren't in direct competition. Did you ever do one of those cross-promotion things with NBC? Did we ever team up and do G4 and Spike together at E3? No, because we're in direct competition with each other. Yeah, that's a very hard line to get a corporation across, especially a traditional one like Sony.
Right. If there's something,
I think the only way this is
going... I think it is if there's something to win or lose, and...
I don't think
the partnership is overt. Again, this isn't something that's overt. It's not like everybody who's playing on Xbox has an Xbox icon floating over their head.
I just don't think Sony is seeing this as enough of a benefit for them to warrant making that what they see as a risk. I think the only way we're going to see them give on this is if people make a stink about how they want crossplay.
The point I'm trying to get at is that Sony is only consumer friendly when it's convenient to Sony, and when but the problem is that
that's been Sony's my problem with Sony forever.
Sony has been that way for forever, but what bothers me is that there's all these people out there that think Sony is the savior of this generation, that they stepped up to do what Microsoft would. No. They made decisions to take more of your money out of your wallet. I have a huge issue with people who get really wrapped up in companies, any company. Because when you work at a company, you realize that most of them don't give a crap about their customers. All they care about is a way to extract another dollar out of them. And, that's all Sony's doing here. Sony has, it's like the graphic says, Sony's big test. This is a test for Sony. This is a chance for Sony to put its efforts where its mouth is and be pro-consumer, because everybody else is waiting. The ball is sitting there in their court, and they can pick it up and they can dribble it, or they can kick it off the court. And I think Sony's probably going to kick it off the court, because it's like you said, where's the win here? How can they make more money off of this? And that's all it cares about. And look, that's all Microsoft cares about. It's all Nintendo cares about. That's business. But this is an opportunity for Sony to actually do something to earn its reputation as the pro-consumer platform.
Right, but that's also why I think Microsoft is doing this to some degree, is because, yes, they are behind and they want a little positive press, and I think they think that Sony's not going to make that choice. I think they think this is a chance to make Sony look like a dick.
That's what I just said. Microsoft is calling their bluff. And look, because in all honesty, Sony dicked them pretty good. They're like, oh, we didn't want to do that. No,
but if Microsoft was winning, I don't think they would feel the need to do that.
I don't know.
I don't think
it's about winning or losing. It's petty. It is totally petty.
But it feels less petty when you're behind for some reason. To me, it feels like, hey, those guys are great and they're really doing a good job, dominating the industry and giving you what you want as gamers. but what if we asked them about this? You know, like
No,
there's a little bit.
that's exactly what I'm saying. This is a total, like, trying to twist the knife a little bit, and I kind of like the gamesmanship a little bit, to be perfectly honest with you, because
I don't see the downside for Microsoft.
Because
I don't see how this could blow up in their face.
Oh, there's no way it will.
I think this is just
there's no way it will.
Sony's either gonna acquiesce or Sony's gonna look like a dick.
Yeah.
Like there's no other real scenario here.
But anyway, I wanted to discuss this topic because there was this layer underneath, and like that's what I like to do on GameFace. I don't want to just take stuff at face value. Like I want to dig underneath to try to figure out why stuff is happening and how it's happening. And I think this is the case where a lot of people just look at it like, well, just do it, Sony, but there's other things like ticking under the hood here that could or could not keep it from happening.
Yeah, the Rocket League guys did not use the term politics lightly.
Yeah.
When they said that was all over but the politics.
Right.
There's a lot of that going on.
So we'll see. I would really be surprised if Sony does it because there's no benefit to them other than their customers.
I'd be surprised if
there's no financial benefit to them.
I'd be surprised if they did it before like a big public stink was raised. Like you know, I think you're going to need something not on the maybe on the scale of the reaction to Microsoft's DRM announcement plans that like you know cause them to go back on it.
Yeah.
But I think enough of a reaction that like you know if that many people care. I mean I don't know how many people are real interested. It seems like if you hear about it as a gamer, you'd probably think it was a good idea to let the two consoles play.
But is it going to motivate people to start a hashtag? And probably not.
Well, maybe if they add an easy mode to Dark Souls, and the only way to get rid of it is to enable crossplay. That's how we get there.
It would be done in a day. Done in a day. All right, it's time to move on to the last topic of the Big Six. We're going to talk about game journalism. And where it is headed. We talked about this a little bit when game trailers closed down, but I really talked a lot more about the financial side of it and, you know, how the different revenue models that you can have and how hard it is to survive as an ad-supported website. I want to talk more about just like the type of content that's being created and how that is going to change and evolve over time and what we can expect to see in 5 years' time from gaming journalism. So I think the first thing I would say to kind of kick off the whole topic is that there isn't much gaming journalism anymore. And look, I realize a lot of people would say there never was any. Like, a lot of people like to bag on games journalists, and I think a lot of that is just envy for their jobs and them trying to say they're unqualified for their jobs, blah, 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 and jealousy and that type of thing. There are real journalists in the industry, and through the years there have been a lot of really good real journalists in gaming. And there continue to be. There still are a lot. But that tact, that style of content seems to be getting squeezed out, I guess is the best way to put it. So
I think because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't pay the bills, frankly.
Well, let's start off by, okay, we're showing Jimquisition right now. So this week, Jim, who I know I love, I don't know what your perspective is on Jim Sterling, but I love him. I think he's really smart. I think he takes unique angles with all his editorial.
I watch his videos whenever he puts them up, which is more than I can say for a lot of people.
Every Monday.
Yeah.
He does a new Jimquisition. So, and we curate every one of them. In fact, we curate almost all Jim stuff. So,
frankly, I'll watch just about anybody who puts a Starscream on his podium.
So, Jim this week was sued by a mobile developer called Digital Homicide. This developer makes pretty awful games. Like, the developer himself has admitted that, you know, they released games when they were just starting to learn how to program.
Yeah. The game in question like uses like entirely like pre-created assets.
That studio has been busted for stealing assets and putting them in its games, using kept tracks, kept music, using canned sound effects.
The blood splatter that appears on the screen when you get hit is like literally taken from a Google image search, and they didn't even cut all the white off the sides of it.
It's like clip art.
It's amazing.
So look, the studio has its share of issues. It's not even a studio. I think it's like
two brothers,
two guys. Yeah. And so Jim Sterling has been pretty hard on this studio's games in the past, and
not like he didn't target them. It was like he does that usual like thing where he picks a bad Steam game and like plays it and kind of just makes fun of it.
And for some context, Jim Sterling used to be the reviews editor at Destructoid. He did a great job. I love reading his reviews. If you guys haven't checked them out, you should go to his website. I think it's just jimsterling.com. he was the reviews editor at Destructoid for quite some time, broke off to do his own thing on YouTube and start his own little website that he does, doing very well on his own. But he has never been one to pull punches. Like, he is, it's like we used to say on X-Play, brutally honest reviews. Like, his reviews are brutally honest. And so basically what happened is he was doing his thing that he's done hundreds, thousands of times before, railing on bad games or just railing on a game in general. And for whatever reason, this little mobile developer really took issue with him. And it ended up becoming, like you can see right now, what we're showing on the screen is actually a video that developer made where he laid text over top of Jim reviewing their game and basically just berating Jim. And so
it's really creepy.
Yeah, the whole thing is really, really creepy. And if you go on Jim Sterling's YouTube channel, you can actually find a conversation there between Jim and one of the guys in the studio.
Yeah, that's the other. It's like only Jim Sterling would like. There you can see the white around the blood there.
Yeah.
Only Jim Sterling would be like, all right, I'm going to sit down and talk to you guys.
He actually did, and he talks to them for like an hour and a half. So, you know, if you
that is also really awkward.
It is awkward, but also incredibly interesting. I highly recommend checking it out. So basically what's happened is these two have gone back and forth now for months and months and months, and finally just out of the blue, the guy sues him for $10 million.
$10 million, like lost revenue.
Yeah.
Like that was going to sell $10 million. What?
It's a completely frivolous lawsuit. The problem is that you can find lawyers who will take cases for free, and all they work on is a contingent that they'll take a percentage of whatever the judgment is.
I guess he called Saul.
Exactly. So he managed to find some hard-on-his-luck lawyer who hasn't had a winning case in a long time who was like, okay, I'll take this case for free, but he probably asked for a higher percentage of any potential payout because the chances of winning are slim to none, basically. But here's the thing. So Jim now has to hire a lawyer, unless he plans on defending himself, which would not be a good idea.
I think he has one. I mean, he's mentioned his lawyer. I mean,
but you have to pay lawyers lots and lots of money. So now, out of like nowhere, Jim Sterling, who basically busts his butt to pay his bills, making videos on YouTube, has to pay a lawyer because some insane game developer went after him. And so this brings me back to where I think game journalism is starting to change. It is that the expectations for game journalism are starting to change because the majority of the content that we see around games is starting to change from critical to enthusiast. It's almost frowned upon now to take games seriously or to look for issues in games. Like, the thing now is like, you're enthusiastic about games. You're a cheerleader for games. You're happy about all the games, and all the games are great. And like, and that I feel is like a byproduct of YouTube and the YouTubers and the people who are just shiny, happy, like it says on the screen, happy, happy, joy, joy, joy. I love Ren and Stimpy, by the way.
Little creatures in nature. They don't know that they're ugly.
Why wouldn't you believe me? Why? So anyway,
I want you to be happy.
I feel like the developers, I think, you know, you can tell they're on YouTube. They created like their own YouTube video to try to blow Jim out of the water. Like, they spent a lot of time on there. So what they've done is they've watched all these YouTubers play games and sit there and say how awesome they are for 3 hours, or on Twitch or wherever, where they may or may not be getting paid for these positive connotations. You sit and you watch, you get conditioned to expect certain things. And so when you come across someone like Jim, who comes from a real journalism background, does real journalism, is critical of things when they deserve to be criticized, it's like a slap in the face. It's like an eye-opener. And so you're like, well, wait a minute. Like, I watched some other YouTuber play my game, and he just sat there and smiled and had a good time the whole time. And I just feel like this whole change, this whole shift in tone of covering games, I wouldn't even call it game journalism, but just covering games, has almost made people who try to look at things a little more with a critical eye stand out, for one, and then ultimately get some ire from people. I mean, I think you see some of that with with Easy Allies. You know, they're kind of known for just being positive about every game that they play. And a lot of the comments I see about those guys is they just have fun playing games. They love every game. But is that really helping you as a consumer trying to figure out whether you want to buy a game or not? It's entertaining, and it's a good way to spend your time if you enjoy watching people talk about games or play games. But when you're talking about, like, when the rubber hits the road and you're plunking down that credit card at GameStop, does that help you at all?
No. Like the YouTube kind of angle on that always feels to me like, you know, because like you've got, you know, game critics who like, you know, it's still not really journalism. That's criticism. That's different. And so you got game critics reviewing things, and I think we're not afraid to be critical about things. But to me, the you know, kind of the YouTube enthusiasm about whatever game or what, I'm going to play this and it's great and this is a lot of fun. Oh wow, this is great. It reminds me of like Entertainment Tonight or like, you know, E or like, you know, extra. And yeah, that kind of thing. It's like, you know, it's like fluff journalism. It's not journalism, but it's like that fluffy sort of like, if you just are interested in this, watch us like just also be interested in it.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, that's all it is. And Jim Sterling is not trying to do that. And apparently he accidentally picked a developer that's crazy because like here's the thing, like that video is weird to me because it's like, you think the people that made that game really think it's good?
I don't think the guy does. I've listened to the entire conversation he had with Jim, and like, he admitted, he's like, I'm not a good programmer, but it didn't matter to him.
Right.
Like, all he knows is that he spent a ton of time and effort on this thing that this guy on the internet is crapping all over.
Well, the irony is,
he's looking for a place to place the blame for the failure of the game.
But the irony is that like Jim's, like all the flap about Jim with this game has probably sold more copies of that game than it would have otherwise.
Or at least people like checked it out.
People checked it out. People know the name, although frankly I don't remember the name.
I don't either.
People checked it out, and I'm sure some people bought it to play it and make fun of it on their own YouTube channels. He probably sold some copies of that game. Just, you know, I'm sure there's people that own Manos Hands of Fate on DVD solely because Mystery Science Theater made it a thing. Yeah. And that's the other, you know, Mystery Science Theater had problems with that too. Sometimes you'd have, you know, these guys who made these movies like 20 years ago come back and be like, how dare you make fun of my movie with the gorilla in the robot helmet,
right.
thing, you know? And it's like, you know, some people just don't have perspective on that because you throw a lot of your blood, sweat, and tears into these things. But it really is strange how every once in a while people are shocked that someone dared to be critical of something. And it's like, it shouldn't even be controversy over being critical over this. Just look at it.
I know, yeah. Look at the blood there. You can see the white edge.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a $5 Mac game I would have bought in 1997.
Right.
I mean, it's just like this. Yeah. Like, where's the controversy here? But even those people, I guess, can manage to lawyer up effectively once in a while.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess that's the, you know, and I don't know how much money Jim makes doing that, and like, is that going to take Jim Sterling down?
I hope not.
I would hope not too, but like.
I mean, look, if they would win the case, of course it would. Like, it would take all of us down.
They're not going to win that, but it's like it still costs money to fight.
Spending 10 or 20 grand for a lawyer if it gets drug out that far. Like,
I mean, that's the thing about, you know, why the legal department's advice always, you know, even when we're in a journalistic situation, we're like, you know, this is fair use. We'd get away if we used it. They're like, yes, that's, you know, we would win the case, but the idea is not to go to court in the first place because that costs money.
Because that's the thing. It's like Jim. It's going to cost him money no matter what.
Yeah.
Because he has nothing to gain other than not paying $10 million.
And
so his lawyer, it's not like he can cut a deal with his lawyer and say, you'll get half of whatever. Like, the lawyer's like, no, you're paying me for this.
And if you're lucky, you know, if...
I mean, it's really a dick move.
It is, but if the lawsuit is dismissed as frivolous, it is possible the judge could rule that the plaintiff has to pay the defendant's legal fees because it was a frivolous lawsuit and no one should ever have had to spend money to defend themselves against it. But again, that's after the fact, after that money has been, you know, you can't just like tell the lawyer like wait until we're done,
right? Because
the lawyers also has to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, you know, you have to spend that money to then get that money back, and if you don't have the money to spend in the first place, you're screwed. Like, you can't fight it. I mean, you know, and that's the concern. I mean, I think, you know, I guess you go to Kickstarter, you go to like, you know, GoFundMe or something at that point, but like, it's weird that like you can even have to worry about that as someone who just makes videos on the internet.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the expectations have changed so much for how games are covered that like you stand out when you like take a stand on something or you vehemently feel like there's something wrong with a product. Like, we've seen the closures of websites or the downsizing of most of the major gaming websites over the last couple years. Obviously, GT went away. It was one of the top 3 gaming sites in the world just 3 or 4 years ago, and it's already gone. Kotaku right now and Gawker are in dire straits because Gawker was sued by Hulk Hogan because, look, and I agree with this, one of its editors ran a sex tape of Hulk Hogan.
An old sex tape that had already had a court order against it.
Right.
They basically knowingly took the risk. They broke that, and they're like, oh, well, it's new news. The people have a right to know. And it's like, well, not really, because it's just about Hulk Hogan's sex life.
And who wants to see that anyway?
Well, no, I think it was because it was part of the sex tape that related to him using racist words.
Right, that's right, yeah.
And Hogan went after them, and Gawker's done similar things a lot of times, but Hogan's the one who had the money and the time and the anger to go after them, and wow, did he win?
He won $125 million plus another $25
in damages, and
$150 million. They're saying Gawker's worth $80 million, $85 million.
The last valuation was about $300 million.
That's not what I read today.
Ago. Well, I looked that up as soon as I saw the verdict. I'm like, oh, how much is Gawker worth? And the estimate was about $300 million.
I read the story on USA Today, just to kind of get my source out there. But yeah,
either way, it doesn't matter because you don't have that kind of money to pay that off.
Well, here's the thing: is they have a parent company, which is just an acronym. It's just some faceless corporation that's worth way more than that. Maybe that's what the number you're getting from is the parent company is worth $300 to $500 million.
That might be it, yeah.
But they weren't named in the suit.
Right. Gawker Media LLC is the company that was
so
named.
They cannot go after the parent company. Right. They can only go after.
Well, that's the point
Gawker.
of an LLC. To do that, but one way, however you want to run the numbers, Gawker can't pay that much money for anything. They only make about $40 million in revenue a year, and that's not profit, that's revenue.
Right. They made $44 million last year in ad sales, which I was really shocked to see it
not
that
bad.
low. That's actually low.
Is it?
Oh yeah, that's really low.
For something as big as them?
Yeah. That's really low.
Well, like I said before, they're going to try to appeal, but appealing that is going to cost a lot of money in the first place. I don't know where they're going to get the bond for that because here's the thing.
They're trying to get the amount lowered.
Right, they're trying to get the amount lowered, but I don't know if their insurance will even cover this because they knowingly violated the existing order on that video, which means you are knowingly putting yourself in that path, which means the insurance might not have an obligation to cover your ass.
Right.
What will happen if it goes through, even if they cut it down, it's still going to be an obscene amount of money. What will happen is they would have to declare bankruptcy, and the Gawker Media LLC would have to sell off their assets, which is all, Kotaku, Jezebel, Gizmodo, Gawker the blog, all that stuff would have to be sold, Jalopnik, all that stuff would have to be sold off. In which case, Kotaku is one of the most successful things they have there, and I would think that someone would probably want to pick that up just for the amount of eyeballs it has, and a lot of that, there's a chance that Kotaku could continue fairly uninterrupted.
Who's going to buy, though?
That's a good question.
I mean, unless it's
who's in the market to have
IGN,
a video game blog?
Who would buy? Because, the trend right now for video game websites is not a rosy one.
No.
And look, even though Kotaku has been kind of immune to this downturn in traffic for traditional gaming websites, it's not completely immune. And investors go a lot on, industry trends and investor sentiment. And
you would basically have to you'd have to hope for either some investor VC guy who decides oh, I want to get in on this Kotaku thing. Why? Oh, that looks like a guy. Someone might come along with that, or perhaps more likely, you would have one of the major publishers would buy it and use it as their own personal mouthpiece blog. That would stop Kotaku being what they were.
That would probably be pretty expensive for a marketing mouthpiece.
Yeah, but you've got a lot of eyeballs on that thing.
Yeah, but see, gamers are savvy, and they would know right away that something funky was going on. They just stopped going there. I mean, they would. They'd figure it out pretty quickly that, all of a sudden this is owned by Ubisoft or whoever.
Well, Kotaku and all those, the Gawker blogs learned that firsthand when they did that one, website changeover several years ago, many years ago, actually, at this point.
Yeah.
And, their traffic just went through the floor, because, no one liked the formatting and they changed it eventually, but, you know all about being forced into terrible web decisions.
Definitely. Yeah, so, the reason we're talking about the whole Gawker thing is because now here's another major traditional gaming journalism website, essentially in peril.
Yeah, which does,
I mean, look,
they're the ones that broke the, the PlayStation 4.5 thing.
They broke
all the Ubisoft
more stories
stuff.
than you could talk.
They've got Patrick Klepek, who's one of the examples of real journalism in gaming. These
they have Jason Schreier's really good. Yeah. He's there, and we already talked about Steven Totillo. But see, that's the thing. If you don't have real journalists like Kotaku covering the industry, that stuff never happens. Suddenly everything is controlled by the publishers or the YouTubers or streamers who are just basically the publisher's puppets that are just dancing around.
I'll be enthusiastic about any game you want for $10,000.
Yeah.
It's about how much they pay with some of those big.
That is how much
those
they pay.
big Let's Play guys.
Yeah, for a couple hours.
Yeah, just to look at the game even.
Yeah,
that's all.
And there's something that paid a lot more than that too, actually. So what I'm seeing is this shift away from that type of journalism, the people who will dig and who will put a relationship on the line with a publisher to break a story, to give us news that we want, that we get excited over, that brings joy to our hearts. It's, say what you want about those leaked images of the NX controller. It was exciting to look at them.
I refuse to wait until the appointed time to know what the next Assassin's Creed is set in.
Yeah. There's certainly a salacious sort of element to it as well. You can't really deny that.
There's a tabloid element to it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't like what Gawker. I don't like Hulk Hogan very much either. But I don't like what Gawker did to him. I mean, they really did lose him his livelihood. This is not a frivolous lawsuit on his part.
I mean, I don't think he lost his life. I think
he got him fired from wrestling. No one in that industry will touch him again.
Yeah.
It'll take years before anyone even takes a shot at him.
He'll
probably be dead by then.
And he did say those words, so it's not like somebody made him say them.
But he'd already taken care of that, and you can't just go against the court like that.
I mean, look, right, yeah.
Nobody really has a right to know, just because and then the head of Gawker or whatever wrote that op-ed where he's like, Hulk Hogan deserves less privacy than the rest of us because he decided to be a celebrity.
Gawker made huge mistakes.
And it's just you're just so straight up, he was dressed like a celebrity, so he should get attacked, is what that was. But to me, that sucks. And for what? It's not like they broke Watergate here.
Yeah.
They broke a stupid little story about a wrestler that no one really cared about in the mainstream for 25 years, or maybe whenever his reality show was on. But now that might end up costing hundreds of people their jobs.
I know. One guy's.
No one at Kotaku or Jezebel or Jalopnik or
knew anything about it.
Or IO9 or any of those places had anything to do with this, and within a year they might be out of a job because they decided we all needed to know about Hulk Hogan's dick.
Yeah, and we didn't.
No.
We really didn't.
Certainly not in exchange for all those people's livelihoods.
Yeah. So to circle it all back around, where is this all headed, Matt?
Nowhere good.
I mean, I said in the prior episode about GT that I wouldn't, in one of the Q&A at the end, that I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years if IGN and Kotaku were the last two standing, and now with Kotaku.
IGN or Kotaku brought to you by IGN, maybe.
Or IGN buys Kotaku or whatever, because that is a niche that it could fill for them.
Definitely. IGN is a little light on the hardline journalism
stuff,
and they could have an investigative department now off of that. That'd be an interesting idea.
But where is this headed, Matt? Is this all headed to a place where everyone just thinks everything is awesome?
Everything is cool when you're part of a team.
Exactly. It took everything I had to not sing the song. But
I don't know. I think you'll always have stuff there are YouTube channels I watch now and then that get decently critical. There's a guy I watch.
Total Biscuit.
Total Biscuit does that. Super Bunny Hop is not as well known, but he.
I've watched some of his stuff.
He curates some stuff of his once in a while, and he if he doesn't like a game, he will get into it, and if he doesn't like a trend in the industry, he'll do a really interesting op-ed piece about it. I haven't agreed with a single one of them, but he argues his stuff well.
Yeah.
And he is a critical voice, and it doesn't seem like people go after him any more than normal. But in terms of an actual journalistic outlet that exists, and they do reviews and they do investigative stuff and they do features and they do I don't know. I guess there's just not enough money to maintain something like that anymore.
And I would also maintain that it's not just a video games thing. You see it in sports. And you see it in politics, where people join a side and they don't want real news. All they want
want their viewpoint reinforced.
Yes, they don't want the truth at all. And that's what journalism gives you, real journalism. It gives you the truth. But people don't want that. Like, people just want something that affirms their opinion already. Like, whatever they build up, PlayStation's the best, Xbox is the best, Nintendo is the best, the Steelers are the best, the whatever it is, Bernie Sanders is the best. Like, they don't want somebody to tell them, no, that's not the best, and here's why. They want someone to say, yeah, you're right, that is the best.
Right. And I think, maybe the future, and I think it's been kind of hinting in this direction, I think, the various publishers will have kind of their own press outlet wing. It'll be
well, I mean, you can already see some of these ex-journalists like doing like the hosting gigs for publishers, and like, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of people out there now that like jump ship pretty quick from the journalism that they said that they were doing before to become basically employees of the publishers.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that famous panel from one of the Avengers comics where they go recruiting Spider-Man, and the panel is just Iron Man holding Spider-Man, and Iron Man says, "We have money," and Spider-Man says, "Oh, thank God." Yeah, like that's what There's not a lot of money out there for standard what we used to do. Yeah, it's gone.
It's crazy,
and that world is not there anymore. I grew up reading magazine reviews of video games and thinking, "Oh, I'd love to do that," and I did do that. I did, in some form. I mean, I did TV, but I did some form of it, and I still, it still like blows my mind when I go to like game events and Andy Eddy will talk to me. Like those guys were heroes to me. And nothing like that exists anymore. Like you don't even have to like aspire to shit. Like it's like you see someone on YouTube that you love and think is really cool. It's like, start a YouTube channel. Like, just do it yourself.
Well, I think you can see it, too, with the success of IGN versus all the other websites. Because every other
Very
website...
non-controversial.
Well, it's not even just that. Like, they do kind of put, like, a happy, shiny, happy, whatever spin on everything. But the way they organize their website is, like, they hire fans of each platform. Like, the people who work on, like, IGN Xbox, they just work on IGN Xbox, and they are on the IGN Xbox podcast every week. Same with Nintendo. Same with Sony. They're the only website that did that. Who is the only website that will probably be left standing when all the dust settles.
And although when you think about it, Sifted kind of does it a little bit, where like the point of Sifted is you put in your preferences and you only see what you want to see.
It's true, yep. But we don't put a slant on that.
No, there's no slant on that.
We let our users put their own slant on it.
But the path to success right now is at least perceived, I don't know if it's true, but it's perceived as just give people whatever they want. Like let them customize their experience so they're not being confronted with things they don't want to be confronted with.
So they're not uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Fox News isn't the top news network for nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And MSNBC does the same thing from the other side.
But it completely fails.
Well, yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I would say because Fox News is more unique in the sense that there isn't a lot of conservative-leaning news reporting.
That could be.
New quote-unquote news. I mean, it shouldn't be leaning anyway if you're news reporting.
If you're a reporter, yeah.
But it's pretty. As well as the old saying goes, reality has a well-known liberal bias. But I think it's very easy if you support conservative causes to think that Fox is the only one that doesn't think you're an idiot.
Yep. So we still haven't answered where is it all headed.
I don't know. I think it's headed to the hands of publishers controlling their own messages, and I think it's headed to kind of private citizens, if you will, having their own YouTube channels that are just about stuff they like.
Patreons.
Yeah, I don't see.
Because look, if Kotaku closes down and nobody buys them, you can pretty much guarantee that a few of the guys from Kotaku will
start their own
band
Patreon
together
thing.
And start a Patreon. Yeah.
There's some. I mean, and like I was thinking, I know, Klepek was concerned about the future after the verdict came down, and I was thinking like, oh, he'll be. I mean, everybody knows him. He's great. He's great at his job. And then I thought like, well, who's hiring for that job?
There is nobody hiring.
Not really. So what do you do?
It's like the old GT guys. It's like, where do you go?
Right.
When there's no place to go.
It's like you move into development or you start your own
thing.
Channel, I guess.
I mean, look, even 5 years ago, it never used to be that way. If you left one publication, there were 20 other ones there that could hire you, and it's just not that way.
Well, the end of G4 was, if the end of G4 was like now, I bet we would have all gathered together. Well, we're just going to do X-Play on YouTube.
Yeah.
And like hope that it
or do a Patreon.
Gain some steam. Yeah, I'm sure that we could have done that.
I mean, the truth of the matter is you could probably do it now.
Yeah, but everybody's moved on and got other things.
Right. Or have they?
Some of them.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of people that did move on, and even if they would have time to do it, they work on the publishing side or they work on the marketing side now, and like you can't do that.
So here's my concern with the shiny happy future, as it were, that I believe is coming, is that, you know, when does the money run out? First of all, it's been a huge paradigm shift just for people to pay for content or websites, period. You know, even with Sifted, like, we were in early and it was a weird concept for people, but people now, it's like when we first launched, I'd get messages from people on Twitter. It'd be like, are you crazy? You're trying to ask me to, like, pay for, like, this show? Like, you know, I'd promote GameFace on Twitter or even Pactor. Like, when it first launched, people would be like, paying for this? I got it for free for blah, blah, blah. I don't really hear any of that anymore. Like, I don't really get any negative feedback about the site as far as it being a subscription website. And to be honest with you, that was one of the big concerns I had whenever I started working on the concepts for it, is I was like, man, like, it could be just something that just dogs the website forever until it fails or whatever. But that really hasn't been the case. It was like the first couple months, like, I would get messages here and there, and like the first week Pactor launched, a couple people were like, screw you. But since then, like, the tides have really turned, and people are more open and accepting of paying for content or subscribing to websites and things like that. But the question then becomes, like, how big is that pool of people who are willing to pay? And will it grow fast enough to help support all these other ventures as they start to come out? Because the other thing, too, is that, like, you even look at big websites or sites that used to be big websites, and, like, now they have like, Patreons to, like, survive. Or they'll start a Patreon to say, oh, we want to launch this new show. If you guys give us X amount of dollars, we'll launch it. So it's like now there's, like, these hybrid models happening where you have websites that are running ads and doing it the old way, but they're also asking for money from Patreon and other crowdfunding sources. So it's a finite resource. How, you know, right now, how much money the consumers and the gamers are willing to spend on stuff like this.
And I also think there's, you know, some corporations are kind of still willing to stick their toe in there, and, like, not in the necessarily traditional thing, but I think, like, keep an eye on that Lionsgate Comic-Con VOD service they're trying to, you know, I think there's still some places where, like, the big-time kind of, you know, traditional media companies are still trying to figure out if they can leverage this geek thing for something, and maybe something like that will catch, and maybe it won't. If it doesn't, I don't know. I think we're down to basically a community that funds its own people at this point. You know, because that's the other thing. Is like, okay, the game trailer, you know, Easy Allies is doing well, and let's say it's up to like $30,000 a month now. That's a respectable sum.
No, for sure.
It's going to keep going. I'm sure. You know, they're not done by any means. And they start doing their stuff, and, like, you know, how long do people stay interested? How long do people stay pledging? How long do people stay subscribed?
Right.
And then what if that dries up? What if that goes away? If, you know, a few years, then what do those guys do?
Yeah.
What's next? You know, have they established themselves as something else? Have they established their own channels? Are they a separate thing? Like, how much money can people throw around? And, like, sometimes it feels like that's bottom. You know, when you look at something like Star Citizen, which is up to like 120 freaking million dollars donated, I think, like, maybe it just doesn't end. You know, maybe you just need to. I don't know. Maybe they need to talk about spaceships more on these things. I don't know. But, like, that's what I wonder. Like, in 10 years, is, like, you know, how are these things being funded? Are, you know, people funding corporate ventures finding it all worthwhile or interesting or useful? And if we are still sort of functioning in this weird sort of private sector area that we've all ended up in with this Patreon and subscription-based method, will we have managed to turn around the attitude towards paying for content into something that can make it a sustainable business model?
One thing that always puzzles me is, why did Giant Bomb go back to CBS and GameSpot?
I don't even have a theory on that.
I can't understand it. I've never talked to Jeff about it. I've known Jeff forever. But I've never... It's just one of those things where I just don't feel comfortable. And I shouldn't feel comfortable asking him, like, why. You know, if he wanted people to know that, he would put it out in the public.
I mean, that's a late drunken night at the Fig question.
Yeah. I still am just puzzled. Like, to lose your independence... I don't know. Maybe they just made it.
Better than losing your company.
It is. Yeah, but I mean, I always thought Giant Bomb was doing great. I mean, their subscription cost is double ours, and they have way more subscribers than we do. So
yeah, but at the same time, they have
a lot more
people, more facilities, in a more expensive city.
Well, Giant Bomb was actually operating in, like, Petaluma, in, like, Jeff's house, basically.
Oh, yeah, I thought they were in San Francisco at this point.
Well, they are now. Once they were purchased again by GameSpot and CBS. Then they moved into like the offices. So they obviously save overhead and all that type of thing. But you don't own it anymore. So I don't know. This is always puzzling to me why they would do that because it's hard. I mean, I could attest it is really hard to start your own company, and like they made it through the really hard part, which is like the first like 2 years. Like that's when you struggle to like build your user base and like become solvent with money, and like for them to make it well past that and then sell, it's just.
I kind of expected something to happen to them.
I don't even know if they sold. I really don't even know what happened there. I
don't know. I mean, I was like, well, I guess CBS is going to fold them into something soon or whatever. And it never happened. They seem to have retained their independence.
Seems,
so maybe he made a really good deal. Maybe he got some kind of guarantee in writing. I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully, whatever. I hope it worked out great for Jeff. He deserves every penny that he can make off Giant Bomb. So I think that's it. I think that's going to wrap up the Big Six. Some great topics today, man. We got some fiery discussion going on today. Arr. We're going to go to our trailer of the week, and it is a long one, and my throat is getting hoarse. I think I may have been yelling more today than I typically do. Is that true? Yeah. So, yeah.
This was a lot of the subjects today were just things that make Shane mad.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
When news is low, tempers flare.
Yeah, I was fired up today. So our trailer of the week is actually a long one. It's like 7 minutes long, but it is 7 minutes of awesome. So Blizzard, here's a little anecdote for you. I did post this on one of the stories on Sifted. So after I left GT, I was actually contacted by Blizzard to go down and interview for a job. It was working in their video department. And I went and met with all the people who work on video there, and I went into one of their buildings, and literally 2 floors the size of football fields, all just for creating cinematics. I was blown away. They take their cinematics very, very seriously, and this is evidence of that. This is a animated short for Overwatch called Recall. Let's roll it.
Shield generator test. Ready to proceed. Now. No need for that, Winston. Your heart rate is through the roof.
I told you to stop monitoring my vitals, Athena.
Very well. It has been 43 days, 7 hours, and 29 seconds since your last cardio workout. Remember, a healthy body is a
healthy mind. That's why I have this.
The second Omnic crisis continues to devastate Russia. The conflict between Omnics and humans has now claimed over 15,000 lives. So far, the international community has been reluctant to intervene.
Every time you see news of this sort, we go through this. I remind you, recalling Overwatch agents to active duty comes with great risk. The Petrus Act clearly states any Overwatch activity is deemed illegal and punishable by prosecution.
I know. You're right. That's the way the world is. But I do miss the old days.
I think you have something that belongs to me. Hand them over. Oh, it's okay. You're not in trouble. Oh, I'll trade you. There you go, buddy. Well, there's not much to see from in here, kiddo. But you know there's more out there, don't you? Come on. It's time I showed you something.
I'm detecting intruders.
Talon. Athena. Kill the lights.
Security protocols failing. Winston, Reaper is extracting the Overwatch agent's database. Extraction at 32%.
You took these because you wanted to see if there was more out there. Well, see for yourself. Always remember, never accept the world as it appears to be. Dare to see it for what it could be.
Winston! He's going to have all agents' locations.
I'll be sure to send them your regards, monkey.
I'm not a monkey. I'm a scientist.
Extraction 90%. Failing 98%.
Hang on, Athena. Athena? Athena!
Virus quarantined. I'm running diagnostics on the core database. Restoring systems.
Never accept the world as it appears to be. Dare to see it for what it could be.
Establishing agent connections.
Winston? Is that you, love? It's been too long.
Yes. Yes, it has.
Yeah, so it's funny, that's amazing. That is like some incredible CG. Like to make that just to promote a video game is crazy.
A video game with almost no story.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're kind of trying to build the lore,
building
I think,
outside of it,
with that. But the other thing, too, is that it actually reminds me of, like, the whole, like, Easy Allies thing. It's like getting the band back together type thing, so kind of appropriate for this week. A little long, but the good news is it gave you guys plenty of time to get questions in. Like, we literally have a storm of questions. Let me see if I can find the first one here. Let's see. Oh gosh, they keep scrolling. Let me turn it this way.
First one after you ask questions is Eric Estrada 12, who asks, with spiritual successors. Yep, spiritual successor games like Yooka-Laylee, Mighty Number 9, Bloodstained, and the like. Do you think these games are successors to are dead for good or still have a chance to make a comeback? Like Assassin's Creed is a successor to Prince of Persia, and now Prince of Persia looks like it's never coming back.
So he's asking, like, will Banjo-Kazooie come back?
Banjo-Kazooie ever come back? Will Castlevania ever come back? Will, that kind of thing. Will Mega Man ever come back? Even though they're going to have, some of the creators that worked on those are making kind of all same but in name, not in name, all but the name games.
I don't think there's any way to make a blanket, create sort of a blanket response to that, because with every publisher and developer, it's different.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think Castlevania's ever coming back.
Yeah, I would say that. Like with Konami and Castlevania, like I would be really surprised if it ever comes back. They dropped Iga. They did the Mercury Stream stuff. They're already working on another game. Like, I mean, it's really crazy to think.
Konami's properties are over for the time being.
Yeah,
I don't see those coming back anytime soon. Mega Man, I don't think Mega Man will ever be gone. I think Mega Man will continue in some form. Maybe not in the form that Mighty Number 9 takes, like
Mega Man's already coming back. They just did they just put up a poll in Japan yesterday about it, like asking fans like what they would want. So something's going to happen with Mega Man. Banjo, I don't know, man. That depends on a lot. Yeah. Like Banjo, I don't think it depends. I don't think any of this. But I guess to answer the question, I don't think any of this matters. Or is influenced by how good or bad these spiritual successors are.
I don't think the existence of the spiritual successors is going to change it. I think if they were like Prince of Persia, you think Ubisoft ever go back to Prince of Persia? Maybe. I mean, I don't know
kind
why.
Kind of redundant, but...
I mean, I feel like Prince of Persia wouldn't lend itself to the Ubisoft formula, you know? Like, if you can't go around collecting flags, you're not gonna get a game.
Oh my gosh, there's so many questions, folks. Let me see.
Nolan Elric, have I seen Batman vs. Superman yet? No. I see that tomorrow night. Have I read the reviews? Yes.
Not good.
And even as a Batman vs. Superman skeptic who does not like anything Zack Snyder has ever made, I did not expect him to be this negative. Like, it is beyond what I expected. I am a little shocked. And I don't feel like it can possibly be that bad. But, like, I guess we'll see.
Let's see. This is from Mike, the cool guy. Should God mode only be a DLC option?
Like something you'd pay to have?
I guess. No, I think it should be in every game. Yeah, I like I said earlier in the show, I just think it should just be a part of games. I think everybody should be able to enjoy every game however they want to. So, let's talk. Everybody seemed to like the trailer of the week. Really, really good stuff. Lots of positive comments about it.
Oh, and I did want to note that I think my Day of the Tentacle pick was warranted for the Fantasy League. Looking at some of the reviews.
Yeah, it's doing okay.
It's like 87 right now.
That's good. You got that pretty late in the draft, didn't you?
Yeah.
At that point, you'll just take it. Shane Battle. This is from Crawford Hannah. Shane, Battleborn is always online. Thoughts? Sucks. I think I made my position pretty clear on always online during this episode. I'm not a fan of it. I'm okay with it with games where it needs to be that way and it's a necessity, but with the games that I mentioned, like The Division, like you could easily play the single player in that game without it being connected to the internet.
Battleborn have single player?
It has like it does, yeah. But it's kind of like The Division in that it's like you can play it by yourself, but you really want to play it with others, basically. It's like 4-player co-op. Let's see, this is for Vidya Games. Thoughts on the closure of Evolution Studios? It seems like every week A new dev is closing now. Also, the developer of Scribblenauts was... The studio wasn't completely dissolved, but the team working on the new Scribblenauts was let go. So, Evolution Studios, a pretty good short run, really. Like, they made the MotorStorm games, which I really liked a lot, and I felt like they kind of found their own niche. When they moved over, though, to like a more traditional, like, sim racer, like I just felt like they lost like their unique selling proposition.
Oh, was that Drive Club?
Yeah, and it was also delayed a bunch of times.
Yeah, Drive Club had a real rocky, not even start, just like it was like 6 months of problems.
Look, I feel bad for anyone anytime they lose their jobs, but in the case of Evolution Studios, I do feel like it was a little bit of their own doing. I mean,
they stumbled in places and
look, they had made a bunch of games before. I don't know what happened with Drive Club, man.
I don't know. I mean, it's a beautiful game.
It's
just like nothing. I don't think any other game quite nails the feeling of driving in the rain like Drive Club does. But and I think they were also sabotaged a little bit by the weird rollout of it, where it was like, oh, you can buy the disc version, or you can buy the digital version, or you can, if you're PlayStation Plus subscriber,
it was very
play it
confusing.
free, but you can't get everything that's on this version. But and then the PlayStation Plus version didn't even happen for months. It got
way too confusing.
And it just, I think in the end, everybody just sort of like backed away from it and was just like, I'm just gonna play Project Cars.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that they just didn't really hit their deadlines for the game, and so everything kind of got pushed back, and it just made it even more confusing because things weren't getting released when they were supposed to. So,
and then when they finally started rolling out like the extra DLC and the season pass stuff, when I'd see it pop up in like the PlayStation Network store feed, I'd just be like, oh yeah, that game. Yeah. Let's go on to the next thing. I was past it. It was over.
In the last MotorStorm, I didn't really play all that much. Like I think I played, like I didn't have to review it, so I think I played like a couple hours of it. And
MotorStorm had a lot of impressive moments. That the Pacific, like the Rim of Fire or whatever that was.
Well, I always remember the bull shots, like the first time it was ever shown off, where they had like the mud on the windshield and the wipers was like sloshing it. Like, still, PlayStation 4,
not there,
still not there. Yeah, so. And I'll always remember my interview with Phil Harrison, too, where I, like, took his ass to task. Like, I think we were at DICE? I think we were at DICE or GDC or something, and it was, like, I don't know, about 8 or 9 months after the PlayStation 3 had been out for a while, and, like, the cards were on the table at that point. And I just literally, I don't know if I can dig up that interview on GT. I don't know if you can dig up anything on GT at this point. But I literally just went after him. Like, just like, that was a bunch of lies. Like what you guys showed at your press conference. Like, I just spelled it all out. And, like, I thought he would never talk to me again after that. He was mad, dude. Like, I could tell.
I think that was GDC because we interviewed him there at around that same GDC, I think it was. And Adam asked something similar, and he went.
He probably got it.
I think he came. It was after your interview, and I think he was like, "How come everyone's like pissed about us?"
Yeah, when I did interviews, man, I pulled no punches. Like I was fair. Like I'd give them a chance to talk about their game, but I would ask them hard questions. And that's one thing I will say. Like if you, with the way things are going with game journalism right now, like that's not going to happen anymore. You just have a bunch of people going up and hey, you're awesome. Tell me how awesome your game is. Like that's
so awesome.
To me, that's not interesting. Like maybe I'm different from a lot of people, but I want to hear real interviews talking about real questions and real issues and getting answers to questions people really want answers to. And the way things are headed right now, it's like
clearly
you're not going to see interviews like that much longer.
Whatever that form of game journalism is, the publishers would prefer if like game journalism was just sort of like the extras on a DVD.
Oh no, everything is going exactly the way the publishers want. Like I can't tell you how many interviews I did where like afterwards like the PR person would be like, oh, wow, you really and I'm like, damn right I did. It's my freaking job. Like I hate where things are going, man. Like I hate to be like, get off my lawn, but I just don't see a lot of value in a lot of the games journalism anymore. I just really don't. So, let's see. I wish Blizzard games looked anywhere near this good. Yeah. Let's see.
Angry Joe does a good job, I think.
Does a good job of what?
Abram of being like holding people to task.
Does he?
Now and then, yeah. The thing about Angry Joe is like. I think it's the character he plays is kind of tiresome, but I've talked to him in person, and when he's not that character, he is one of the coolest, knowledgeable gamer. Like, he's super cool to talk to about games. Like, it's really interesting. Like, when he's off stage, that it's just like he really is just one of us. He's just one of the. But he will get up there and he'll yell at developers or get into it with them sometimes if it's something he really cares about. And he is pretty fearless about that. I don't know how much traction he gets off of it.
I'm not a fan of Angry Joe. I'll just go on record. So I'm seeing a lot of questions, people asking me, what is the Sifted logo? And I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to get up and show you. So just stay on
Careful,
that two-shot.
You're attached to the microphone.
I'm actually moving during GameFace. So people are like, is it a comb? Is it whale's teeth? I saw, which is great. I really appreciate that. So
yes, the Baleen logo.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that the big S is a sifter. And I don't know if you guys even know what a sifter is, but a sifter is like a round cylindrical thing that you put flour in, and there's a handle on the side that you crank, and there's these little things on the inside that spin around to sift whatever it is that you have in there. And so that's what these lines are. They're the little bars inside the sifter. And then as far as the lines coming down, so on the top, these represent huge blocks of information. And then when we get to the line, which represents the website, which is the sift, it breaks it down into all these smaller categories, so it's easier to consume. So that's what the logo is. And I know people probably looked at it forever and been like, what the heck is it? But that's what the Sifted logo is. So.
I thought it was an S.
Well, it is an S. So that's the thing. It's it is an S for Sifted, but it also is much, much more. So that's the logo. Maybe one more question?
Oh, the set is not CG.
No, it's real. The funny thing is we have a TriCaster, and it actually has these crazy virtual sets in it. You can, it's insane. If all you need is a green screen, and Matt and I could literally be standing in this crazy ESPN, maybe for April Fools, maybe we do a fun goofy show or something where we just have some weird we'll figure something out. But yeah, we could do that, but we don't. The set's actually real, and you can touch it. One more question before we call it a night. It's been a long show. It's 9:15, so we've been live streaming for 3 hours and 15 minutes now, people. Definitely get your money's worth with us. Definitely a comb, Vinaraba says. It's a giant S for Shane. Let's see.
The S stands for hope.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions, do you? Oh, here's one from Leffy Louvre, I think. Leffy Louvre. Have you seen Yahtzee's review of The Division? And if so, do you agree? Well, I don't want to completely tip my hand. Did you see it by any chance?
I did. I don't agree with him, but he just basically said it was boring and repetitive and did it. But
you don't agree that it's repetitive?
I think it's repetitive, but that doesn't bore me. Yeah. Every game is repetitive when you reduce it to the level he reduced it to. I mean, I enjoy it's just like Destiny. I enjoy the physical gameplay element of shooting in that game. I think it feels good. I don't think it feels as good as Destiny, but I do think it feels good. And also, Yahtzee hates online games and he hates multiplayer, so it didn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I think what surprised me is he quit the game after 10 hours. He just stopped. So yeah, I mean, both of us did see his. I don't even call it reviews. When we tag his stuff, we just call it opinion. We don't want to get his stuff in with the other more traditional reviews. But and a lot of it is comedy. Sometimes he writes lines to make sure he gets a laugh out of his stuff, which I totally get. We worked at X.
Yeah, I mean, I take Yahtzee as entertainment.
Yeah, for sure. But he has some pretty good criticism at times too. I admire the guy. So I would agree with some of the stuff he said. I do think it's repetitive. I would agree with that all the way. There are literally 5 mission types that you just play over and over again. But I think he just doesn't enjoy shooting maybe as much as I do. I mean, obviously, I didn't quit. I'm about 30 plus hours into the game and I'm still going. So I wouldn't say I completely agree with his assessment of the game, but I do think that he made some salient points, and I think that's what you can probably say about every one of Yahtzee's videos.
Yeah,
is that you're not agree with, and everyone's probably reviews. Like you're never
really
going to agree.
think about too much about whether I agree with him or not on that. I just think I just watch it to hear what funny things he has to say about the game, and usually they're true for the most part, and or at least like an interesting observation or a point of view on little quirks about the games, and that's what I'm there for. He's been doing that for like 8 years now.
Yeah,
like that. Remember when that first started? Everyone's like, "Well, people get tired of that after like 5 or 6 of them."
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not as popular as it used to be.
No, but it's still going.
Here's a fun story. We tried to get Yahtzee on game trailers. Like we went through crazy negotiations to try to get that guy, and for whatever reason, he went with this little website called The Escape. I'll never understand it. Still to this day, he never gave us a reason. We put a very fair offer on the table. Maybe the Escapist just threw like gobs of money at him. I don't know.
Maybe because we did get him on X-Play. That was the year X-Play went daily, and we did get like a thing where we would air a minute, but the day before it went up for the week, we would air a minute of it censored with like bleeped, the swearing bleeped because obviously we're TV. And then the whole thing would go up on The Escapist the following day, and that lasted for like a year. And I was never clear on the detail, because what happened there was like I watched his original video on YouTube, and I was like, we have to get this guy, and like just this flurry of all these outlets trying to get him happened, and he ended up at Escapist, which I'd never heard of, but there were a lot of some X-Tech TV people there, including Russ Pitts. So maybe he just Russ Pitts can pitch a deal. So maybe they just seemed like the people who would let him do what he wanted.
Could be. We made him a very, very great offer. I was shocked when he turned me down, but it is what it is. One last question I just saw that I wanted to read. Seeing the success the GT guys have had with Patreon, does it make you consider adding a Patreon to Sifted for extra content? That's from K. DeBolt. We've actually been thinking about adding a donation option for Sifted for quite a while. I've been approached by a lot of subscribers who want to be able to contribute to the site financially, but don't feel like doing it at $30 a time by buying gifted certificates and handing them out. They just prefer to give us a chunk of money. So we're looking into ways to do that right now. In fact, I just had a call with Brent about it yesterday. So I wouldn't say their success changed anything that we were working on before, but I think it made us realize it's a lot more viable, and we shifted it up in the queue in the list of stuff that we were working on. So I guess that's the best way to put it. So yeah, there will be an opportunity for people to donate, essentially, and invest in Sifted in the very near future. There will be some perks, on-site perks associated with that. So it wouldn't just be like you're giving us money for nothing. You would get some form of recognition on the site that we're not talking about just yet. So, yeah, I think that's it, man. We got to close it down. We're going on 3.5 hours of streaming right here.
I gotta eat.
Yeah, I am starving actually. So, well, it's been a great episode. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks to everyone who stuck around for the full 3 hours and 15 minutes plus. We really appreciate it. The stream really lively tonight. Lots of great questions, lots of great comments. I'll definitely read it later to catch up with all you guys. But for now, GameFace is up and out.